This is the May 9th budget workshop, Marsh County Fiscal Court. We're going to start with page 61, which is the jail cook.
This doesn't really reflect any changes other than the 2.1.
I mean, I'm still trying to get there. Why do some of these have pages and numbers and some don't?
It's probably because at some point it means I have added or copied. It's probably,
I mean,
and
it's
it's the
close
print
enough,
set up
I
on
see.
each page. Trying to get it to the TV. Okay.
You got one just like that. I know it. I didn't get the memo.
Okay. Y'all don't have any questions with the cooks? This is slightly new. Roger may have talked to y'all about what MRT is. I don't know that I can tell you what MRT stands for, but it's some type of an educational type training for the inmates that this is the instructor's pay.
Has that always been the budget? I had that marked
No.
as a question. I too
No.
did not know what it was.
It hasn't. It's a new program that the state's encouraging jails to offer. It's one of those things, if you don't start offering programs, you're going to lose your state inmates. So
Right.
it's something that Rogers instituted.
Obviously, Roger can explain that when he comes to speak to us. Obviously, as you said, it's a state's encouraging that, but just like the state often does, they're encouraging, but financially, they're mandating without any
Right.
dollars to provide the
It's
program.
not necessarily a mandate, but
Well,
if you don't have the programs that the inmates, that they want the inmates to
They're just
have, then
suggesting
they're going to
that.
send them to another jail.
He can, Roger can explain that, I guess.
I believe you, but that.
The MRT program we talked
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever MRT is.
Yeah, Roger can explain that better. This is his training fringe. And we're to 911 salaries.
And down towards the bottom, third from the bottom where it says pay scale variances, what is that? $20,000.
That is the difference between, as you all may know, 911, the past few years has had a lot of high turnover. And when we would lose a dispatcher that maybe made less an hour, and we picked up what they call a lateral transfer from another agency, they might make $2, $3 more an hour than the one that left, depending on the level of training they already
Experience, yeah.
have, that we don't have to send them
Okay, that's
to
good.
the academy and all of that. So we put that in there to absorb that difference, if there is any, because it has been a problem in their budget in the past, and it's not one that you can really predict unless you put something in here like this to absorb some of that.
Is this kind of, are these employees, are they treated like, we had that discussion yesterday about how one department's employees are there, they hire in and in the first couple of 2 years they're there, and one of them's making $3,000 more than they did last year, and the other one has to wait 3 years to do the same thing. are these employees under the same umbrella the rest of our employees are?
The ordinance, once we pass the ordinance, that they will fall under the administrative code, yes, they will be under the.
Well, that was my understanding, and like I say,
However, in the past, the way they did their pay scale.
Right, but it-
Being under the board, it was different.
but uniformity will exist, or we're gonna try to get it that
Yes,
way
that's-
with
that's
all
the goal.
departments.
Correct.
Okay, that's good. Good deal.
The overtime and part-time amounts in there are an average. Due to some of the turnover in years past, they've had higher overtime than this, but this is what we asked them to try to meet. This is ABC Administrator. This is where, since he also does nuisance 4 hours a week, you can see that this is just the 36 hours a week. So you would combine those two for his entire total. And we'll get that changed.
And that comes in the other 4 hours of the 40-hour week or in nuisance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and when it says current salary and current salary with raise, was that the same salary that he was getting for 40 hours?
No, that's 36 hours.
I know it, but he didn't work, it wasn't 36 hours last year, but it is, is it the same? Is there more monies there for that extra duties? I understand that didn't read 36 hours last time, it read 40.
Right. And when you all, when we enacted that nuisance board and appointed him as our nuisance enforcement officer, we had to shift his duties and stop paying his full salary out of ABC and begin paying what we expected him to work in nuisance out of that. So this year has been a partial year for him as far as he had full-time ABC salary for a little while, but then it switched mid-year.
And the job that he's doing with his demeanor, he's doing an excellent job in that nuisance. I mean, we have no monies budgeted apparently for nuisance and cleanup, and thus very little teeth in there. But Scott's got the demeanor that he can call somebody, and he's done that numerous times, and just ask him in a nice way to do that. And it's been amazing, the ones I've been involved with, and what he's done and been able to do with just a friendly phone call and not reading the riot act to them, and not everybody's going to
Right.
do what we'd like them to do and take care of their properties, but it's been amazing what he's been able to do with the demeanor and so forth. He's done a good job there. Still broken, but it's headed in the right direction.
We're doing the best we can with the little we have.
Right.
This is ABC's admin assistant, which is part of Brad's duties. And then the next page is collections, which is Brenda's and my portion for Brenda does Scott actually receives the funds. Brenda does the deposits. I do the reconciliations for segregation of duty
Say
purposes.
that again.
Scott or Brenda will accept the returns. Brenda does the deposits and the entry. I do the bank reconciliation so that we've got segregation of duties against all of
Right.
that.
We see that about every year. Those are, you said in the future you're going to try to group those all in one, where they show up on the,
What do you mean? With
Well,
the
so that-
salary?
so that, like the
Like-
example yesterday, that, it appears looking in there that you and Brenda are getting a $3,000 pay cut when that's not actually happening, and if they could be, where we wouldn't have to go through 10 pages to find that, but that was my understanding that we were going to try to do that so it would be more.
Yeah, I can try to
Clear.
make it look as best I can with that.
I know.
Because, and especially with my office, we have so many pieces here and there.
I understand that. Good.
Building inspection, Casey Counts, this is his 40%.
In case he's got another page in there somewhere also, correct?
Yeah, up in GIS.
Right,
And
okay.
he had a $2 an hour increase in the GIS plus a $2 an hour increase to building inspection. So, that brings him up to 2310, I believe, prior to the 2.1.
He also does a very good job, a very good employee.
This is our inspectors. Larry Spears and Randy, these are estimates. I feel like they're probably estimated a little low. Cats is obviously pretty large, but with building and, with commercial and electrical, they're just often big contracts. Cat has also got David Wagner assisting him a little bit. He's someone that, it's been several years ago that the court approved for him to assist Cat in some, in case he's just keeping up with, I don't have him listed on here, but some of this, it would be the ones, it would come from Cat and go to him, to Mr. Wagner. As we get above these amounts, I'll amend those fees in so that we can pay them.
Okay, these two salaries right here, can you tell me that, of course, they are programs, state mandated programs, and the most recent one being the residential inspection when we added Randy. But out of that $212,000 and change, what is how much of that is reimbursed? Is it, the state set up that 2080 to, in their minds, that was going to pay for the program. Is that holding true, or is that some taxpayers' dollars out of the general fund going towards those line items, or is that program, I know I've asked it periodically through the process of where we are, and it's pretty close.
Currently, it's self-sufficient.
It's okay, it is currently?
Yes.
Okay, that's-
And the 80/20, to my knowledge, is not a state mandate, but it's the arrangement that we have.
It's a
with the-
suggestion
It's
from the
what we
state
have with the
that
inspectors.
they assumed that would pay for that program, was my understanding in 2015 when they did mandate that we have residential inspection. Okay?
Yeah, and I've gotten
But
that.
it's pretty close. It's not a runaway train one way or the other. I mean, I
Yeah.
know it's not going to be right to the penny, but
That 200,000 that I have in fees for the inspectors, on the receipts side, if you tally up commercial, residential, and electrical inspections, they come to what I have budgeted is $250,000 a year. So this is the 20% of that 250.
okay. So
Close.
we're making a little money?
We're keeping our head above water. I don't know that we're making a little money. And with Casey's increase, that may change. That's why we have the interlocal agreement with the cities for us to share that together. If it doesn't, I feel like it will.
That's this page here, that's what we discussed in court, was that the interlocal agreement, we've got several things that we need to discuss and give to the cities. You've got their portion here. In a good year, obviously this year is a good year, but in future years, if we have bad years, we don't want to fall into the same situation as the 911 situation. So there's a lot that we've got to get done on this piece, the interlocal agreement.
I do feel like that we won't need any funding from the county or the cities this coming fiscal year, mainly because we've only got budgeted in here $20,000 from us as a tallied together. And I haven't budgeted any kind of rollover into next year because it's still very new and it's also very subject to change depending on who's building what, when, and where.
Is there a reserve for that, line item for reserve when those funds exceed what we pay out?
There will
those
be.
dollars can stay
I have
there?
one budgeted for fiscal year 18, I do.
Okay,
But I'm not, it's still a very new fund, and even, it's even harder to predict than ABC, so,
well, I understand that. It's-
I
But
mean, it's got to primarily to do with
yeah,
bigger projects that go in.
yeah.
We built a lot of buildings down there at the plant over the last couple of years, and they're probably close to being done with those projects. So some of that may go away, but then somebody else may step in, but you can have quite a range yo-yo for this fund right here.
Yeah,
as the judge said, you gotta, it's all right now, but you gotta prepare for that time that it's down the road that it may not be, and,
But then, of course, I mean, when you do that, I mean, that's, at least with Cat all those years, I mean, his salary yo-yoed, I mean, it was.
right.
The percentage was the way that drove it. So years, sometimes he didn't make near as much, and some years he made more.
Yeah. The last page is just the rates page. This is where it's listing the increase for this year is 2.1%. It tells you what our hazardous retirement rate is. It's fiscal year 18, it'll be 31.55%. That's 0.49% more. Non-hazardous is 19.18%, which is also 0.50% more. I usually factor in 10% for health insurance, that we would anticipate that to go up 10%. It's not gone up more than 5% in the past 2 to 3 years, so we've gotten really lucky with that.
but the previous years before that, it's been.
There's been a couple of years that it went up
It was
substantially.
crazy many years ago.
But it's been really good for the last few years. KEHP's plan, the state plan it may not be the best there is, but it's best for us, for our employees. That kind of concludes payroll. If y'all have any additional questions, anything you thought of last night?
Just the questions that I asked yesterday that you were going to, and not necessarily today, but just sometime in this process before June 19th that I asked yesterday. And there may be more.
All right, we got done a lot earlier with payroll this morning, so the agenda, I don't want Denise sitting there all day, with nothing to do, so. We asked, we sent a message out to some of the department heads that are scheduled for this afternoon to come in this morning, and Scott was the first to respond, so here he is. So we'll go ahead and jump to ABC.
Obviously, these are all new, it's all new. That's the first full year of doing this. We'll just start at the top where ABC Administrator, and I assume that the difference is, just like the treasurer, the girls in the treasurer's office, he is not getting a $3,400 reduction in pay.
Right.
It's reflected in
Yes.
the nuisance and the 36 hours.
Yep.
That's the explanation there,
That's
okay?
exactly right.
Okay.
Is the office rent paid by the county or the state?
It'd be paid by the county. This year, we didn't pay it. When it was so much shorter than we anticipated, we didn't pay it. And that's one of the things that, if this budget is short, I don't know what we're gonna do. We're not gonna budget any money for ABC, but,
It's just creative thinking.
yeah, it's one of those things that if the money is there and if it's plentiful, it's a way that the general fund is able to recoup some of those dollars, recoup and use some of those dollars for general purposes as well. because of the license fees are able to be used as the court chooses, correct, Scott? The regulatory fees have to be,
Regulatory fees have to be by law for law enforcement purposes. Any fines or licensing fees can stay, can do whatever for the county.
it would be, I think I understand correctly that of the regulatory fees, it pays for administration, and then the rest goes to policing and enforcement.
Do you have any idea percentage-wise what the administrative aspect of ABC funds are spent in administrative and what's spent in actual the law enforcement? No, it's all.
I'd say almost half in this budget, because you're 275 total,
That's close enough.
and it's 118 that's gonna be administrative. When we discussed budget with the sheriff, he was very understanding that we were going to set the ABC budget at a level that we thought that would be very easy for us to attain, so we didn't have the problems that we had this year. Then anything that came in on top of that, we would amend in, and that way we could discuss what he needed at that time to spend that on, since this is we've had a full year, but it's not been a real full year, and this one
Right.
upcoming will be, but we're
Maybe,
still guessing
maybe,
until we
maybe
get
about 3
there.
years. Scott and I've talked about that. It takes probably 3 years to shake out before
Yeah.
we're not guessing. And I think everybody understands that the administrative part, at least in the infancy stages of this, is going to be more than it might be in the future when everything gets worked out, because we're working out bugs and we're learning as we go too, and trying to do
I mean, it's like
do it proper.
I got one this morning, or yesterday afternoon, I got it for a new restaurant. I mean, it's a continuous cycle. We thought it would be like, once it
Right.
got set, it would be set, but they're still applying.
There- That'll be all, but not like it was in the initial.
Not like it was at the beginning, no.
stages. It was,
Thank goodness.
it was a cavalry charge at the front end of it, so. But that's certainly justified, the administrative part of it, I can certainly see in the infancy stages.
Saw we had a new craft beer across from the Memory Gardens out there.
Yes, sir. It's just craft beer. It's not a,
Bar,
well, it's not a tavern. Let's call it a tavern. It only sells
boy,
malt
you're
beverages.
so politically correct.
Oh, I've got more calls on that than I have any other place in the whole county.
I have too, that's why I say that.
People was asking me, how can they open that up in a house? I said, well, it's a building. It's not the house anymore,
It's not a house anymore. He gutted it and completely reworked it inside and used a bunch of old, barn wood.
They have to jump through all the hoops just like
Yeah,
everybody else does.
they got it in compliance, and they
Right.
met all the state regulations and passed the
Right.
process.
I don't know how that'll go over. I don't know how many craft beer drinkers we have in Marshall County.
I didn't realize there was that many craft beers, period. But there are.
That's a big deal.
It's huge.
You go out there, well, my son lives in Utah, gosh, there's places that have 50 on a menu, and they're at a little restaurant or whatever, and that's what their draw is, all these different types and
But
tastes of beer.
he's got 4 on tap.
Oh, yeah. And it's something.
I don't know how many he actually has in the restaurant now, or in the store, but he's got that capability.
Of course, you got a line item for ABC reserves, there's no, as long as they stay in that account, if we build some reserves, there's nothing to keep us from developing reserves in that account.
Their
Statutory,
budget
that's
just
Right,
changed.
No,
with
it's
one
gotta-
drop of that.
I made sure I got the heavy-duty case,
Okay.
just in case.
I thought the budget just got adjusted as you tore equipment up.
Nope.
We
Just
did.
got it.
I did add a vehicle expense category since Scott does have a vehicle. I know he's fixing to need some tires. That's something that we've not been good about, making sure that if a department has a vehicle, they need some type of a vehicle maintenance in their budget, because then they need something and we don't have anywhere to put it, and they put it in supplies or something like that, and then their supplies gets all out of whack because we didn't budget for new brakes and within your office supply.
But there has been no monies budgeted for reserve in that at this time.
No, and just like building inspection, there will be monies that will roll over into next year. So I would be able to amend those in after July 1.
But I'm a big advocate if there's monies, like Bob said in the ABC, that's mandatory. That can't go anywhere
No,
else.
it
That's
will
law
stay
enforcement.
there.
That's got to stay in reserve.
It
But
will stay there.
But certainly, I'd like to see those numbers that we don't use for as we talked about property taxes yesterday, and that $70,000 with that pattern over the last 3 years. I'd like to see those, we know it's coming in and put that in reserve initially, and it was my idea. And if we need it, obviously, we've got it in reserve instead of not budgeting it all. And I think $70,000 and with that kind of track record over the previous years is I think we can do better in budgeting, and I'd like to see those monies go ahead and budget it, put it in reserve, and we can always pull it out instead of, kind of hiding it or what we talked about and leaving monies there. I think we need to have it.
You won't be using the term hiding money now.
I didn't,
Well,
we
and
used
what
that
a lot-
yesterday, but reserves will take care of that. There's no
Look.
hiding money.
Often
It's hard, fast dollars when it's in reserve.
what's much easier to do is to trying to predict carryover when I don't know what we may spend between now and the end of June. We try to have an idea of what's gonna happen, but we don't always. Generally, I will try to make sure that the accounts roll over, what our carryover is higher than I budgeted, so that July 1, I could make it a budget amendment and amend in those additional dollars at that time. And probably that's what I will do, not July 1, but towards the beginning of August, to roll those in and start creating those reserves. It's just, I feel like it's much safer to do it after the fact, after we know what those dollars are, rather than before, where we possibly set ourselves up for overestimating income.
I understand that too, what you're talking about, and that's one way of doing it. But like I say, with the track record of property taxes, the 3 previous years, exactly $70,000 year after year after year, those monies I think can be their hard, fast dollars if they're put in reserve. And certainly that's the definition of that. It's a rainy day fund. If you don't collect any taxes for 6 months, you should be able to run your municipality by all accounting principles.
Anything else for Scott?
Right around the door.
He's hiding.
Reserved the right to ask questions later.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it, Scott.
Problem.
I think Kurt's hiding around the door.
Kurt, in these amounts, do you all feel like we need to add a line for vehicle maintenance? We were just discussing that. A lot of times, if a department has a vehicle, but yet it's one that doesn't require a lot of maintenance, we often forget to budget for that. Is that something like,
Truck's fairly new, so we've been fortunate. All we've been doing is our scheduled oil changes and, of course, tire rotation. 2 years years old or 3 years old, I can't remember. That was bought previously by
Right.
employment, but
Right.
2015, so,
Are you able to handle that within that maintenance repair line item? Is that
let's see, which one we got maintenance?
towards the bottom?
Yeah, I think so. Depending, you know, because right now, everything, if something major was to go up, I haven't put my hands on the paperwork, but when it was
Right.
purchased as a new vehicle, I'm sure it has the 5 or 10-year warranty on
Okay.
on the major stuff, so I think that'll be comfortable and that easy, so.
I want to make sure that you all are comfortable so we can keep our fleet in good shape.
I think it's all workable. Do you see anything that's jumping out at you, Darlene? We're gonna get a better deal on tires, hopefully, when we get our bid for people wanting to bid on that.
The,
I just put new tires on last year, so.
okay,
we're good there for another year.
okay, good. The emergency notification software, when we talked to y'all, I believe that's sirens. Did we talk about putting those on like maybe a rotation where we start
At some
replacing some
point,
of
we're gonna
those?
have to start, actually, I was talking to one of the fire department chiefs, and he's gonna submit a grant, and, we can only do like 2 a year on a grant, but we're looking into getting a grant for that to start and pick out the 2 worst ones and start from there. Anytime we can get a grant, free money's good money, but,
How many of those towers did we have in the county section of it? I know that,
try to look that up one day for sure.
Most of them were put in service in 2009.
Yeah, a total of the towers.
12.
12, yeah.
who pushes a button for those babies, what the county has it? I know it's how it was set up in the beginning when the county in the north end, the south end, and Livingston County had a couple of towers or a tower and so forth, and one person pushed the button for all of them, and that doesn't happen anymore, is my understanding.
Or it doesn't happen like that, you're correct. Calvert City and CMAP have the capabilities of operating their towers, and all our towers go through our 911 center.
Okay, all those towers, did the county upgrade theirs? They just upgraded all theirs. They've got new boxes, new, did the county follow suit when that happened?
The county hasn't yet, no, that was Calvert City and CMAP done theirs.
Right,
But
in the
the
last
counties-
year.
The counties are still pre-existing what we had.
But you think there's 12 of them
I believe it is 12.
in the county,
You know, in
which
that-
are located where, all but the
they're
north end of the
sporadic-
county,
They're sporadic throughout the county.
with the exception of the north end? Incorporated Calvert City and the
CMAP,
chemical
and
plants.
They just replaced all
Livingston.
theirs, so.
Right. Obviously, if we don't know where they are, apparently we don't know what's the service arrangement on those.
I've got where they're all located.
They all.
Like there's one Mike Miller Park, Draftonville, Gilbertsville.
Are they-
Most of them close to fire stations.
Are they tested periodically? Is there
Every
a?
month.
Like at
First
1 o'clock or,
Friday.
at 1 o'clock or something, like it was at, okay, they kept that.
We have a scheduled maintenance repair with, what's his name?
Keith Norwood.
Keith
Norwood.
Norwood, the electrician.
Okay.
He goes, I think quarterly doesn't, and checks them, and I don't know what he does with the report, but I know we pay him to do it, so.
It's like all technology, it's kind of like if 4 or 5 years and that's not adequate anymore, and you got to kind of keep up and.
We're starting to get a few pieces of them, I guess they got like plastic speaker cones, as you can envision that. I know the other day I got a call where one of the cones around one of the sirens fell off, was laying in the parking lot, so they're starting to get some wear and tear on them, but
Some of those things, at the north end of the county realized that you can't get the parts anymore.
Right.
Can't get anybody to work on them and.
Well, there was
because-
two separate kinds.
Right,
The
right.
ones that move is the ones that,
House
that they
light.
were having some
Right,
problems with.
right, and that's what they had, problems with that.
in the future, when it comes to a point to repair or replace, the non-rotating ones would be better. Instead of putting up one that spins, just put one that's got, you know, the 4 cones. Eliminate that moving part. And
That's what they did in the north end, for those reasons.
They do, OEM gets a grant from the state. They reimburses a portion of their salaries. I've got that budgeted in on the receipt side. That's 20,000 is what I start with. Oftentimes it winds up being 23 and some change, something like that. They also get, assuming the city is going to continue that, they get $1,500 a year from the city of Benton to assist with their trainings that they have.
You know, I wasn't aware of that in the first 2 budgets that those salaries were reimbursed, but Darlene does a good job of keeping after that, and I don't think the general public realizes. They see those salaries and so forth and last year they paid 50% of them, didn't they? Not initially at the first, but they had money in the pot left, and you applied for those monies, so
And we're gonna do that again this year.
50% of
Just
that, and,
One day last week, we were told we can do it again this year.
right,
Because we're out right now.
right.
So from
With a couple of
April
months.
to October or September.
But that same thing happened last year, and you were able to do that, so stay after that. That's,
And Kentucky EM were terrible about their payments. We might not get one for 9 months, and they've done some different things there, and they're much, much better.
She wants to have those claims done within a week. So like when I posted it yesterday, this one won't go in because we don't have money left, but and we can see the progress when they're looking at them. Within 3 to 5 days, they're already done and ready to reimburse now.
The state's doing something right.
Well,
that is a good program that most of the people don't realize, that your 2 salaries are 50% of that's reimbursed by the state. If you ask for the grants, and if you don't ask for it, they're not going to come volunteer to pay
Right.
them. So you all do a good job of staying on top of that.
Line items, I guess, down here around office supplies, I hope I've got the right sheet, where we've, well, that one's, office supplies, 2,500 was budgeted last year. We've used $763, is that right? We're budgeting 5,000 then again this year.
Yes.
Is there something we're missing here, or is there something they need, or?
Was there something that we talked about in there?
4450 is what he's talking about.
Yeah.
You
Well, there's 2 or 3 there in that.
spent a
same
third of
line
what you
item.
budgeted last year, but yet you've doubled the budgeted
Safety
expense.
supplies and training's kind of similar, I didn't know if there's.
I don't think we're planning on any major expenditures for the
I think
office.
of what we
Got to keep that candy in there good, though.
gotta keep the candy.
I
That's the
have no problem with that.
763 right now.
Grandson likes that. That's so moved, let's make it 10.
I know there's going to be 1 or 2 of smaller electronic purchases. Darlene's going to have to get a secure laptop. Right now, she's stuck with just the base, whatever, what do you call it?
I mean, you're doing a good job of,
It's a
you know,
desktop,
you're saving your dollars. I just didn't know looked like we were increasing there in places where we're not spending dollars now.
It may have,
The quote we got from Code Red, was there anything, because I know there's going to be some labor on our end, or actually y'all's end, as far as getting citizens in the community into the database so that they can be notified.
that's what that is.
Is that,
That's not siren.
yeah, that's on 77060, that
Right.
12,000 is the
Oh, that's it, okay.
Code Red.
That's code red. It's not,
That's the code red system.
We had some citizens that, for an example, they weren't aware of a boiling alert, and they felt that something like this, we've discussed this last year, I know we had other quotes, but something in addition to the sirens that could actually notify people on their cell phones. And I don't know if that had anything, I don't know, Bob, it's a good question, but I don't know if that had anything to do with that line item that we're talking about, the 5,000.
It might have been some of the legwork. I think the 12,000 was the Code Red program itself
Yes.
to be activated and installed.
That's based off population.
Yes, and they finally come a better, first figures included Calvert City area, and we had to sit back down and negotiate. They wanted to double charge us, said they weren't gonna take Calvert City out of the county population, and I guess we bumped heads and said we're not gonna double pay because Calvert's already paying, so they resubmitted their bid with taking the Calvert population out, but there is gonna be some small expenditures. We're gonna have to do legwork, do advertising, figure out how we're gonna get the people notified to, sign up for that.
That's a big deal, whether they will or not.
Yeah.
Right, we can't make them, but
Right.
Well, what you said, you
I know
mentioned Calvert City, and Calvert City has Code Red, and they've been very satisfied with Code Red because the county came several years ago and they felt a need at Calvert City because of the chemical complex to go ahead and go through with that program and participate. And, but in the last year, it's my understanding that the city of Benton has contracted with some group.
yeah, they have some outside company, a First Alert or.
But they're providing the same service. Is that a duplication of, whereas, Code Red, that's their operation in Calvert City. Obviously, they should take that number, not pay double for that, but Benton is getting that same system. They just went with a different company that does the same thing.
Well-
Would that be?
Benton's not actually a Code Red system. It's more like a personal notification that has to be sent out by
It does
the
more
mayor
than
or
emergency.
something like that.
It does events, it does social things. This
Right,
is
it's not an
specific
actual
to
Code Red can
emergency.
go through with National Weather Service,
Right.
storm warnings, stuff like that.
They sold that aspect of it there because I was there and they were presenting that company sold that to the city of Benton, that they can do that. Obviously not Calvert City has been great investment, Code Red, and they have been a valuable tool. And we met with when Code Red came to Marshall County a year ago, Judge, or whatever, and we talked to those people at one of the conferences but that was our only problem then, that trying to get a discount because Calvert City, and they told Calvert City and Marshall County when Dwayne Halls and, what was the gal's name that was here? Melissa were there in that meeting, that the advantages of it, and if the other entity wanted to come in at a later time, that would be taken into consideration. I kind of felt like they were kind of balking on that, but you said they have kind of got right in the heart.
Yeah, they got right to heart. They took Calvert out of the equation, and actually, I talked to John Ward at Calvert and told him that we were looking into the possibility of implementing Code Red in the future. I don't know what he pays, but we would get together and maybe if we bulk them with Marshall County, Calvert can just pay a portion of it toward an overall. So
That's the kind of deal they were trying to cut at first, but
Still, I just wondered why we were increasing when we're not using those funds and those other line items, 4450 and.
Let me go to
whatever
their
else,
other page, though.
5740.
Try not to, they have other pages in here deeper, and I didn't want to confuse you all by me looking at something.
We're easily confused, that's for sure.
the same thing in the next line item, there's money budgeted,
We're just increasing it, if there's, we've kind of set down.
No, I don't remember unless it was due to the computers that they were talking about replacing, which we've got that
IT, we
within
got that taken care
GIS,
of.
so.
Unless it was like marketing material for Code Red.
And the next line item's the same thing. We budgeted last year 5,500, and we've only spent 500.
That
And
is
40.
that's the money from the city of Benton that we roll that, what they don't use of that will carry over into the next year.
And maintenance and repair down there is 3,000, and we've increased it by 2, we've only used 209.
Oh, that's city, Benton, the 5740.
Yes,
Are they going to continue to do that this year? Have you discussed that with them? Anybody?
I have not discussed
Off
it
the
with them,
record, I
but
have, and she said she was, yes.
You did with the mayor?
And they're very supportive of it.
are.
Actually, they have to be. It's not an option. They have to either have their own emergency, Office of Emergency Management or partake in the county plan. And from the city standpoint, they're a lot better off making a small monetary
Yeah,
donation.
much more cost effective, yeah.
Was that $1,500? Is that what they do, Carol?
And we, that just, it sits in there. We don't hit it hard. She wants us to use it for when we're out for training, for lunches,
Identification purposes.
maybe buy shirts, uniforms.
And that's a good thing, by the way. That's a good thing that you're doing with the identification tags. Somebody's out on the identifying our personnel and so forth, so that you
That might be
respond.
part of it.
That's probably part of it.
We're gonna have to get some more of those.
okay.
That is a very, very good program to identify to the general public when somebody comes out, that it's not somebody trying to case their house
I
and
don't have any problem, I'm just trying to figure out why we were adding to.
Yeah.
Do you remember how much those cards are, or?
No, I don't.
I know they were pretty expensive.
Yeah.
And we had to eat the cost of that right out of the get-go, because the machine we had to replace, the last one was bad, and the programming was bad and all that, so.
it makes a nice card, doesn't it?
Would
That's
you
a-
care to, Darlene, if you don't mind, to look into that and see how much of that you think you'd need? And then, because when we did the rounding, we pulled from some of that. And if some of this was for computer replacement, we could shift that into the GIS desktop maintenance that we pulled from that a
Departments.
little bit for the rounding, but then we could put some of that back towards,
Okay.
it would still be getting your computer. We're just gonna funnel that through GIS since they know what we need on our computers. And I think that's why we increased maintenance repair to the 5,000, is that it wasn't the 12,000 with the sirens, the 5,000 was what we were anticipating with the sirens, that they might start trying to repair that. 12,000 was code red. I'm sorry about that.
I haven't seen a bill come across on the repairs for the shields off that one siren I was discussing earlier. That was at Elva, Oak Level. I do know he said he was gonna have to go out and I guess they're made out of sheet metal or something, but anyway, that's the one that they found in the parking lot. And I know that was gonna cost incurred for having sheet metal shields made. They have to rent a 100-foot boom thing. Mike Miller Park has an issue with a siren too, so he was gonna try to schedule the final repairs on the same day, so we'd only have one rental for the lift. I don't know where he's at on that though, what his progress has been with that.
I know we discussed the 11 or 12 sirens, putting in a plan of action to actually upgrade or do some repairs to them. And that's the 5850. To try to get out in front of that until, instead of waiting until something breaks or we don't have anything.
Yeah, I talked about with Keith, we basically, we do a physical maintenance, on the electronic part of it, but probably wouldn't hurt to, once or twice a year, to actually get that lift and go up and put hands on them sirens and check everything. And we don't know if they've been damaged by hail or anything like that. And we need them to work, not somebody call and say, hey, there's a big part of your siren laying in the parking lot, you know. By then, it's too late to try to wonder if it needed minor repair. Now it's major when it's laying in the ground.
Can't climb that.
Go from repair to
I can
replace.
climb it. Oh, yeah, there ain't no
Well,
doubt
what
about
do we need-
that.
What we need a lift for?
I can get right up that thing.
What we need a lift for then?
Any other questions? All right. Appreciate y'all's time.
All right, thank you for having us, and
Pretty vanilla.
Josh is on page 5 of 18.
All right. We'll do economic development, 5 of 18.
Economic development's budget basically due to Lacey volunteering to go part-time and Josh being able to absorb that. There's a $25,000 reduction in his budget associated with payroll.
I also had that marked as a question, but I got answered, and it was answered that that was voluntary on her part.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay? I heard that yesterday, but I just had it marked again here to.
You're gonna be able to manage then with that?
Yeah, so Lacey will be coming in 3 days a week. So that's the plan. So she'll be there to assist with our various boards, helping maintain those files and the minutes, and then also to assist with the financial management of all those boards. So we feel like that's something we can do on that 3 day a week period at this point, so. Pardon?
We're gonna get an industrial park.
Well, I don't know, man. That's something we can talk about.
That's the goal.
I think that's, I don't
No
know.
problem with that,
I don't either.
if we can make it go.
As long as you don't have a problem with it.
No, I think that, this is, it's a significant and quite honestly, a big surprise to me that this is in here, and I'm excited about it. It gives us an opportunity to leverage, some funds at the local level with some other existing programs that may be able to help us acquire some industrial park property for that multi-tenant kind of, manufacturing park that we've talked about in the past, so yeah, I'm really excited to see that there. And those things take time, and I think it's a good idea to have you all involved in that conversation. I think it's important to note, though, that it is there, but you all will be a part of that conversation, so.
And those dollars, it says industrial park, but can you be a little more specific and certainly have no problem with economic development and going in a positive direction, which we always need to try to do. But the $400,000 can you be more specific what those $400,000 are? You anticipate the use of those, or we talk about land, we talking about, I just don't want to, on my part, I'd more comfortable that if I've got a plan, instead of a blank check for $400,000 to do what with? Are we talking about land with purchasing some property or trying to from the $64,000 study we did, or in some of those areas, or is that what that's going for, or?
So the $400,000, and I'll kind of give you a broad perspective of how an industrial park development would happen. Obviously, from the local public sector, what will have to happen is that there will have to be options on property of interest so that you can do your due diligence. So your due diligence would include your phase one study, wetlands, studies, archaeological studies. Bob is familiar with some of these things. Obviously, some design, from an engineering firm, a master plan, those kinds of things. So, yeah, I think all-inclusive, really, Rick, would be the plan. All that's going to be part of the overall, industrial park development. I think the $400,000 is a very small portion of what it's going to take to actually have an industrial park ready for recruitment of industry. So yes, I would say land acquisition, I would say due diligence work on the site. I would say that it's up to you guys. If there needs to be infrastructure improvements,
That number, I would expect to be more planning than almost anything else. If you think it's a big number.
That
but
number's not gonna, that's not a big number when you put an infrastructure in.
That's a small number. That's a
Right.
small number when you talk about if you get it to that point.
Correct.
You're probably talking about several $1 million to get it, but if you can get this, you gotta have the start. You
and
gotta-
it's leverage. I mean, those things are obviously can be used to leverage other funds and other programs that
Exactly.
might be out there. So.
When Baker Farm and Workman did that study a couple of years ago or whatever, and they came and made their presentation, they did an excellent job of they do super duper work, or I think they do, and I was very impressed with, but one thing that I was a little bit concerned about, and I kept asking, is they identified each of the 10 sites that they had chosen and listed them 1 through 10, that each one of those sites probably involved 5, 6, 7, 8 property owners to get that tract of land at that site. And that was a concern to me because just like this body right here, if you sell every one of us, well, Denise, is a no-go, and she's right in the middle of that property, so it's a bust. So, that was a concern to me. It's hard enough to work with one property owner and negotiate when they know we want it for this, and well, you know how that is. And now you're dealing with 7 property owners, but each of those sites contained, a minimum of 4 or 5. And I just didn't know how we were going to go and use those, how we were going to negotiate with those people, and one person can throw a wrench in the whole deal,
Yeah. Amen.
And I know you've been
That's what
there and done
everybody
that.
does.
That happens in every project,
Every one of them.
and people
Had it to happen multiple times before, actually.
Yes, we have.
and people come in here and you promise them tax incentives and all these perks and so forth, and little that that you better not be naive enough to think that they've not got 10 other communities on the string just like they got you, and they know good and well they're not coming to your town, but they're just using that as leverage and when they want to go to Cleveland, Ohio, and
That's right. Yeah.
So that's just the game that they play,
And competition is very fierce right now throughout
Sure it is.
communities across.
more so now than
Yeah.
ever.
There's been, after the recession, there was a period where there were a lot of existing facilities that were in communities that were literally available for pennies on the dollar because they were just there. And that inventory has started to diminish. That's why you're seeing communities like Murray and some other communities building spec buildings in their planned industrial park. And hopefully they will fill that building before it's finished. I know it makes them very competitive.
Is Murray, speaking of Murray, have had any nibbles yet?
Oh, I'm sure they have, yeah. I mean,
they've got the same,
Yeah.
they've got the same industrial park that the same, Baker Farm and Workman did their project for them, and it was my understanding that they had nobody in that industrial
Well,
park.
the difference between Murray and say us is that Murray's actually competing for new projects. Right now, we don't have anything to put in front of a company to entice them to come here. And it's a great community, and we have a lot of great natural resources. And
You're
unfortunately,
preaching to the choir there, buddy.
yeah,
I agree with you.
unfortunately for, in the economic development world, you can have all those things, and if you don't have a site ready, then you're just not going to be competitive. And again, looking at it from a bird's eye view, what's good for the region is good for us. No, there's no doubt. But yeah, Murray has a very competitive industrial park. They've got a great spec building going up. I mean, it's top of the line. And I think we've got the resources here in Marshall County that makes us very competitive for an industrial park that's very unique to this region. We have two major interstates meeting here. We have, of course, the river industry, the chemical industry cluster. I think there are opportunities to build on that, and target market to industry. So having that infrastructure, that park ready to put in front of a company, well, it just gives us something to sell. And you got to be ready because competition is super fierce, not just across Kentucky, but across the entire Southeast. We're starting to see more and more that, just to be honest with you guys, I mean, we're really trying to play catch up here because we've seen more and more communities and economic development corporations that are, building spec buildings, and we're just trying to get the land for that. So,
And you
No,
could
I
say
definitely-
the same thing with infrastructure. The same thing applies to the river ports. There's that project's in place and ongoing, and it's been and that's one of the problems that I have with that. You got to have infrastructure to attract those people, and there's people that are interested in that. But I agree that we need to be prepared and be active in those areas.
and again, let me just reiterate that, these funds would be something that could be used as a match, if you will, or leverage for other funds. But I would want, you all as a fiscal court and the judge to be involved with how those funds are used. I don't want you to think just because it's in our budget that we're going to just try to go and do what, with it as we see fit. I want you all to be a part of that conversation and to move that forward. So just want to throw that out there.
And I would expect to be
I know you
approving
would.
the budget
Well, that's why I
before
said
then.
that.
That's why I asked not to give economic development a $400,000 blank check to go out, and
I wouldn't
that's
ask
why
for
I wanted
that.
a little more specifics of what we're going to use that for. But you're saying with that $400,000, when those monies are spent, you will come back to this body and we will go through the process and explain where we're going with it and
Yeah,
where
and
those monies are
I would
spent.
I'd go a step further in that as opportunities come up to use these funds, if those opportunities come up, that I come to you guys beforehand, and that you're actually a part of that decision-making process. I in no way want to utilize these funds without you all, giving approval and taking formal action. This would not be something that's just delegated to me to you. So
As you well know from past experience, that's one of my pet peeves that a project comes in here, and I understand your confidentiality and having to be tight-lipped because of out of respect to those industries coming in. But it's always been my pet peeve that whether it's city government or county government, that we can't identify obviously publicly, obviously you can in executive session, but I certainly think if you're asking for $400,000 or in tax incentives, that we can go in executive session, protect the privacy of those industries and so forth. And if you can't trust this body right here, you can't trust anybody. I think if you're going to ask for $400,000 or tax incentives for any group that comes in, that certainly, we need to be involved in that process and have knowledge, and instead of hearing at Dairy Queen or Minute Mart that that somebody's coming in, you know.
Well, and let me be clear, this $400,000 is not for tax incentives.
Oh, I understand that. I
this
know
would-
that. I'm just using that as an example.
Well,
of
and those
how
aren't
it's gonna be
those aren't
spent.
Josh's rules either on confidentiality. Of
Oh,
course,
I understand that
professionally,
too.
you
I
know,
agree
that-
with you. I
that
agree
puts
with
it-
you. But
that-
confidentiality to the people that are going to be voting
Oh,
on it,
absolutely. If
incentives or
I'm-
whatever, if you can't trust 4 people and, you know, I think that that's a must, or I've always insisted on.
Well,
you know,
and
that,
we've
whether you do
we've
it in
seen
private.
situations in the past where, you know, that trust has been given and word gets out pretty quick on
right.
who a company is and how many jobs they're going to have.
But if they
and
know
what
it-
that does is
if they
that
know
puts
it's
that-
fast Eddie's and,
Yeah.
and 4 pigs before we know it, that's not very.
Well, that means somebody in that
comforting.
executive group has gone out and said something.
Well, I mean,
And think
before
that-
before the body knows.
It,
but-
the problem that
what
you
I'm
run
saying.
into is that if it gets out in the press
I
or in the
understand.
public,
I understand all that.
it threatens their tax incentives at the
Right.
state level. There's very little you can do at the local level right now other than your occupational tax. Other than that, you really can't do anything.
It's all usually a package deal.
Yeah, so, you know,
county,
that's
city.
kind of the reason those things have to be kept confidential as you're.
Oh, I understand that. I fully
Anything
understand
personal or
that.
have anything to do with
No,
trust.
I
it's
know
just-
that, but, like I
Okay.
say, I think that, you know, if you're gonna be asking us, you know, and when those incentives do come up in that situation, that, you know, it's, you need the answers yesterday, and, you know, we have no idea of scope of the problem or time to do the homework. That's just, but I certainly understand that.
Well, and I would hope that you
confidentiality.
would trust me and that I would be doing the due diligence on the project to make sure that it's good for the community. I mean, if, I always try to provide you guys with, you know, average wage, number of jobs, you know, those kinds of things. The due diligence that I do as an economic development professional to make sure that the project is worthy of the incentives that you're going to give them. I wouldn't want to.
Right,
In-
but I
in
would say
any
my
case.
point is, I think we need time to do our homework also to make sure that those numbers are accurate when you say, you know, $20 an hour jobs, that make sure that they are $20 an hour jobs and they don't come in, you know, at $10 an hour jobs or something. That's.
I mean, I wouldn't lie to you about the wages on it.
Well, I know, but you're just repeating to us what somebody's repeated to you. And that, you know, that's not always factual.
Well, there's an application process, Rick, that they go through when they
Oh,
apply
I
for
understand all
incentives.
that, and it's.
So when they apply, when they send their
They're telling
application
that to
to
10
the-
other locations too. I understand all
Yeah,
that too.
But when they make
It's a game.
application for incentives, that's documented. It goes to the state for their approval, and then that's when I come to you guys at the
Right.
local level for the match. So if they don't hold up their end of the bargain on wages and jobs created, they don't receive an incentive. It's based off of performance, not just something, you know, we're not cutting them a check when they show up, and it's based off of performance. So if they say they're going to create 50 jobs and they only create 10, then they only get the incentives on the
Right,
10
I
jobs.
understand about the job number.
Oh, okay.
This is the first step. We have to have something to offer. As Josh said, we don't have anything to offer.
I agree.
Well, again, I appreciate it. I mean, I'll be honest with you, the judge came to me with this, and I was really surprised. I think this is probably, in my 10 years in economic development in this county, I think this is the biggest thing that the fiscal court's done for economic development. Not me, not the office, but I think specifically for the community. And I think this is a good move forward, and I'm really glad that you guys are hopefully on board with this.
It's a good first step.
It is. Yes, it is.
Any questions?
All right,
Appreciate it, John.
Thanks. If you guys have any other questions, I'm just down the hall, so please feel free to stop in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
I think we had, who else? Andy. Andy's probably going to be coming down. And then Dennis, we may wrap up the afternoon agenda by this morning. You want to send Dennis a message?
I'll have to go to work.
No, you won't.
You want us to take it slow? Is that? Appreciate it, John.
Yeah, thanks, Josh.
The main increase in the GIS salaries is gonna be, Casey's raise plus the 2.1%.
One of the biggest things that we did with IT is we talked with Andy, and it's kind of like our fleet maintenance on our vehicles, the computers. And Andy, why don't you explain as far as the updates and the warranties and everything? It just makes sense to put it all underneath his department. That way he can stay on top of it to
Desktop management, yeah.
desktop management.
Yeah, what we're doing, I actually started to look at some of where we're spending a lot of our time, a lot of our money. It looks like the majority of our labor dollars and labor time is going towards supporting a lot of these computers that just, you know, we get them up and running, and then they run for a little while, and then for whatever reason we have a power surge, they shut down. It's, you know, a lot of it's going to the computers that are 7 and 8 years old, been out of warranty for 4 or 5 years. So one of the reasons I think that we have gotten to that point is because historically we've always had those as individual line items in each department, and for each department that's fine, but unfortunately the upkeep and everything else ends up coming to our department. So we can greatly free up some of our time for sure, but just operate a lot more efficiently. We don't have somebody sitting there waiting with a computer that's not working. If we can just get on a rotation, it would be fantastic if we could get to where every single machine we had was in warranty. That may not be, that may not actually make financial sense right now, because there's a lot of those machines that continue to run for a pretty good amount of time outside of that. But the numbers that we're looking at here, this 29,700, what I did was went and looked at every machine that was, I'd have to look at it again. I want to say that that's at least 3 years out of warranty, and we're looking at replacing those. So we'll still have, you know, quite a few machines that are not in warranty. But a prime example of that is this morning I got a call from the court security office and went down because their computer just died. And it's one of those machines that's, you know, it's 8 years old. It was purchased 8 years ago. So went down, messed around with it a little bit, finally got it to come back up. But, you know, now we're kind of living on borrowed time with some of those systems. So not only is it a time sink for us, but now you've got people that can't do their jobs because they're waiting on a computer to get fixed. So this just gets us on more of a rotation, and then going forward each fiscal year, we'll look at budgeting and replacing a certain number of those machines.
In that line item, of course, I've got my questions are written, as I said yesterday, on my old sheet, and the new ones but I noticed that number, and I did have a question about desktop management, which you gracefully explained, but that figure was $45,000 until yesterday, and now it's $29,700.
I think, I think initially we budgeted that high until we got numbers, until I was able to look through those and really make some
Okay, I
good
just-
judgment calls as far as
Until
what we should.
yesterday.
Yeah, we
Well,
had actually
yeah.
overfunded it, I feel like, a little bit. And then when DLG recommended me round that payroll up, that's where we took it from, because we knew that was overfunded.
Pull from there.
Okay, well, that's,
And as we talk to department heads, there may be some, like, I had 2,000 budgeted in mine that I shifted into yours because I had
Right.
planned on replacing machines in my office. Kurt and Darlene, after we talked to them, they had the same thing. So, they did get back with us, and the lanyards and everything that they need are probably $250 to $500 a year. So we could probably take them back down to 2,500 and them still be very comfortable. So that we could add that 2,500 back to this.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it sounds. I mean, the computers, I mean, when they go down, you're done anymore.
8 years is
Wherever you, I mean, down to plant. I mean,
Yeah, oh,
they go
absolutely.
down and-
I mean, you can't do anything. You can't check your email, you can't, you're pretty much dead in the water until there's a solution. And this also gives us the ability to have, I think in this number, I think I budgeted that we would have 3 spare machines. So if we do have one of those situations where we've got a computer that is out of warranty, we've got another one ready to go that we can slot in there too, rather than saying, oh, it's just as a scenario, if we happened upon that computer that I looked at this morning, if it had just been dead, I can order a computer today, but best case scenario, it's going to get here, 2 days later or something. And that's with expediting everything. So now you've got somebody in their situation for 2 days, they can't essentially do their job. So this would allow us to have some spares there in the case that we do need them.
I'd say you'd be very fortunate to get 8 years out of one.
That's, well, especially an office machine. It's not like it's a home computer that you maybe use, 5, 7 hours a week. This is a computer that's used 8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Technology's gonna catch up to you there too in 8
Eventually.
years.
Well,
It'll
yeah.
pass you.
That's not even counting the just
Yeah, I
technology.
just saw in the first reading, we had 45,000 and I couldn't find 45 in the other one, but that explains that.
Yeah.
But you still got what you need in that, dropping that number to 29, you just got a more accurate figure.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Good deal.
Yeah, I think that initial 45 was based upon replacing everything that was outside of warranty. And like I said, that'd be fantastic, but that's not really financially responsible at this point. A lot of those machines still have good life left in them, especially if we can have some spare machines that if we do run into a situation with one of them, we can act on it quickly.
Andy, the other thing, and we went to the top line in the salaries, GIS salaries, and 8,000 being Casey's bump. We talked about this yesterday and may expound on that a little bit while you're here. We've had $40,000 budgeted, and after the audit, and the audit comes back and tells us that we got one of the best IT men in the state of Kentucky or anywhere else for that matter. His plate's just too full. You need to get him some help, so forth. Where are we in that? We've got it budgeted in there, and we discussed this for $40,000. You're not going to get, it's competitive, and we all understand
Yeah,
that. But how can we take advantage to help you with those monies, those dollars that we have budgeted to get you some help? And they always use the scenario that you go to San Diego and you die in a car wreck coming back or a plane crash, which is not very a good analogy. But yeah, I think maybe you started that
Maybe
analogy.
I got caught in the gears of a combine or something.
But,
That's the way to die.
but where can we go to get you the help you need, and what that audit told us that we needed to do a couple of 3 years ago?
Well, okay, two things. First of all, I actually have an interview with the guy on Thursday. So we're going to sit down and, no guarantees, but a lot of it has to be it's a good fit. We have got a pretty dynamic work environment, and there's a lot of people that, even diehard IT people, like it's something different every minute. So we want to make sure that that's a good fit for both people. So I have a conversation with somebody on Thursday that I'm going to have. And that looks promising so far. And then actually, just believe it or not, I received another contact this morning from somebody that was interested. So we'll see where that goes. But you're right. The difficulty is where do you look?
Right.
And, talking with a lot of the industry professionals in the area and where they've had to go to find talent, they're hiring from northern Indiana and
Right.
paying moving expenses to bring them in.
Right.
And you don't even want to know the starting salaries that we're talking about with these people. So it really puts us on a pretty,
Right. We discussed that yesterday
uncompetitive.
too, but obviously that's a good start, and that you're talking to people, going to interview somebody Thursday.
Right.
And we need to, they've identified that, and so we're marching forward with that. That's
Yeah.
good. Good deal. Hopefully you don't perish in a crash coming back from San Diego this time.
Anyway, let's not even specify from San Diego or anything. On the way home.
I see that he's got, talked about fuel maintenance to Kurt and so forth. I see there is a line item in there for $750, well, no, $1,500 maybe, but for that, which is probably neat. If we've got it in one, we probably need to be consistent, and that's a relatively new vehicle, just like Kurt's vehicle, and that's probably a good idea to have a little bit in there, because there's going to be things.
Another thing, was the support contracts that
Yes.
we were changing. We were dropping, which one?
Smart Path.
Caleo's the only one now.
They will be for next year, yeah.
Okay, I think you and I talked about that.
Yeah, just somebody, I mean, it has nothing to do with performance or anything else of
Right.
any of those companies. It's just a fit for
Right,
the
they're fit for
needs
us.
that we have and what
Right.
works best with that.
Right.
If you can't find someone, I thought SmartPath was the place you could get someone to do something like you did this morning, just to go repair, make a repair, send a technician if you needed them. Is that not true?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what they would do. However, just looking back through a lot of our needs, those are some of them. A lot of what we need as far as additional help is project-based kind of stuff, to be able to roll out new things, and they don't do any projects. They look at what they call a current steady state, which is everything exactly as it is right now. If something happens to take it out of that state, they'll come back and assist to get it back to that state. But if we have, any number of things, like for example, one of the things that we're looking at doing to reduce some of our ongoing operational expenditures is to move the animal shelter or at least the animal shelter onto our network here. Well, part of that is a wireless link that we would set up. So that should work fine, but that's one of those things that, it's really difficult to do with two people because you have to aim 2 points at each other. Well, those are the kind of things that they don't assist with.
That's what that audit also revealed, in my understanding, that we need to be proactive instead of reactive, and without help, and we were being more reactive than because of the lack of manpower and your plate being full, and that was the explanation.
Upgrading equipment should help with the technical.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
Further, and Andy's is not much, the uniform's $300, but that's not necessarily a question for Andy. Where are we standing on, are we uniform, no pun intended, are we uniform across the board as far as uniforms for road department, parks department, special projects? Are those, does everybody, all the employees have the same benefit? And the road department, as far as uniform allowance, special projects, and Emily, has that been
There,
that in this budget? I know I
Yes.
talked to Wendy at the road department yesterday, and for this year's budget from last year, we released the $100 boot money and the $200 per uniform per employee, and that doesn't hold true as far as the parks department or the maintenance, the special projects guys. They're not aware of it, if that's the case. I had that conversation this morning.
Aware of what?
My question is it uniform across the board? What is in this budget as far as, everybody gets $100 boot money?
No.
And this year in particular, everybody gets, according to Wendy yesterday, $200 for uniforms and $100 boot money, $300 total.
It's $300 total.
$300 total, okay, it went from two,
And
okay.
of that
Okay.
$300, it's up to the employee to determine.
I couldn't hear you.
Of that $300, it's my understanding that it's up to the employee how they spend that
Correct.
$300.
But my question being, I understand that, my question being, after finding out yesterday, talking to Wendy, does the same hold true for the Parks Department as far as uniforms and the special project guys?
Parks Department, yes, is in there at $300.
Okay, it's in this year's budget or last year's budget?
It's in this year's budget and next year's budget.
Okay, so they haven't been made aware of that as of yesterday.
You can ask Dennis that when he gets here.
Okay, yeah, okay. And the special projects, they have that same $300, $100 for boots, $200 in this year and last year?
Different amounts for each department, just
Okay.
like we budgeted last year.
Well, that was my
Different-
question.
Different
What is
departments have different amounts. You can see them in here.
Well, that's what I was
We try to
asking
stay
him.
consistent, and the same is for each department.
Okay.
You'll see uniforms.
Right, I was just asking Emily if that was, I would think that would kind of be uniform, at least the special projects
But
and the.
GIS, I mean, you wouldn't expect GIS to need.
No, I'm not talking about that, I'm not
hard-coded
talking about
No.
that for that, yeah, but I'm talking about, wouldn't you, Bob, in the road department, the special projects and the
Special
parks
projects,
department, I would think they would be the same, and I just didn't know, can you tell me that, Emily, if this year, the road department has got and in this proposed budget, which I have no problem with whatsoever, think that's good, to $100 for boots and $200 for uniform.
Let's get something straight. It's $300.
Yeah.
If the employee wants to buy
Right, I
a
understand
$200 pair of boots,
Right,
so there's no 100.
I understand that aspect, and I have no problem with that either. But I'm just trying to make sure it's uniform across the board. That's,
Whether you're breaking it down, there's not a breakdown. The employee breaks it down.
I understand that. I understand, and I have no problem with that. It's $300. My question is, it's $300 for the road department. What is it for special projects, and what is it for Miller Park? employee?
$300.
What?
$300 each.
$300, so it's in there, okay. Thank you.
There
That's
are
all I need to know.
others,
Good.
there are others that have less.
What now?
There are others that have less, like GIS.
Yeah,
There's
I understand that,
$100 a
but I
piece
just,
in
those
there
are
for
apples
them
to apples there.
for
Okay.
being identifiable
Understand,
when they're
okay.
off-site.
Got you,
or-
I agree with that, that's good. That's what I was hoping the answer would be, that's good.
Any more questions for Andy? Dennis is on his way. He'll be here about 15 after 10:30.
You have to go back to work, Bob.
Oh, they don't watch
Yeah,
this court
let's
meeting
talk
on
about
tape
that.
down there, they'll never know.
It's,
In a few days.
I have no idea what those dollars would be.
I didn't know
One of the
what-
things that we talked
I didn't
about in
know
our
what-
pre-budget meeting was moving all of the communications line items into our office so that we can just look at them and keep an eye on them, and just to notice, if there's anything that's out of place, if we're paying too much for something we shouldn't be, or if it's one of those situations where we can look at it and we can find some technology solutions to minimize it. Part of the reasons why we then looked and found out about setting up a wireless link between the animal shelters, we started looking at the phone bills and realized how much we're spending on a monthly expense for internet and phone at the animal shelter, when we could cover that under the umbrella of what we already have. So one of the things that we talked about doing was moving all those communication expenses into our office so that we can monitor and
Okay.
vouch for that stuff too.
I think I misunderstood. I thought you all just wanted to review them. And
Whichever way is more
we
convenient, it
can,
really
we
doesn't
can
matter.
move that entire line item into your budget if that's acceptable with everybody else. It's on page 3. It would be, it's number 0150255730. It's county phone and internet services. I've got
What was that number again?
0150255730.
Okay.
We've taken that down to 84,000 this year. And it is lower, as Andy told us it would be, as we get the new phone system switched over.
Where,
That-
where are we in, speaking of phone systems, where are we on the deal we cut a couple of years ago with with that outfit that wanted audit?
Telecom,
Yes, audit, and they were turning somersaults when they realized that their portion was gonna be in triple digits because we were paying out the yang for a phone
It's
system that's a
At
dinosaur.
the county attorney's level.
It's in
It's-
negotiations, it's still, that was where it was last time, so it's in litigation. Okay.
so I'll just make that line, it will read 0150915730.
So you're gonna move all of that to Andy's budget?
If that's acceptable.
Oh, I don't have no problem with that. I think that's,
That way they can.
Andy, you all right with that?
Yeah, that was
That way.
my idea.
Yeah,
Okay.
that way,
Then
Well,
that
you're all
way
right
in
with it.
there.
Well, and primarily it's so that we can look at that and just keep an eye. I mean,
Sure.
That way they can, add it to our PO spreadsheets and keep on top of that.
So we scratch that from fiscal court and move it to,
Yeah, it'll just be
I see.
shifted to GIS.
right, okay. We're moving the whole 84,000.
Yeah, and that's something that we did a few years back when we knew we were gonna get the phone system. The way the way the bills come, you can't break it out per office or anything.
Right.
It's just one bill. So we just created one line, and that's where they all go.
So it's this time it appears we're gonna have a little oversight, where in the past that we were paying for lines for years that we
Yeah.
didn't use,
Yeah,
didn't even
and-
exist.
Yeah, and there was no way to have any oversight. Like years and years ago, I would go through there and I would periodically either try to send a fax to a line or call a line, and if they didn't answer, I'd cut them off a time or two. Well, then somebody cut somebody off that should have answered, and you get
Well,
reprimanded and told to
obviously-
turn it back on,
obviously,
so
he's
I quit doing
qualified
that.
to do that more so than the treasurer's office would be, so that, I
Yes,
think it's under the right
absolutely.
jurisdiction.
I don't
now.
even know what we're talking about.
It's okay, it's old.
Don't worry, you got tasked to do something else.
Is that 40,000, Andy, that's computer software development? I think that's actually our maintenance contract is mainly. Is that still enough or,
Yes,
okay, because that,
yes,
okay,
it should be.
okay.
Any other questions? Andy, you got anything else? You trying to do some math over there?
Yeah, I was just checking to make sure that that number was appropriate for software maintenance. Yeah, no, it is.
Okay.
And if you need more time, we got.
Yeah, if you could, yeah. If it looks like down the
Okay.
line, it's not quite.
I'll double check it. I feel that's a good number.
Okay.
But we've had a couple things as far as software. I just need to double check on what those ongoing maintenance costs are. Because the upfront cost obviously is just a portion of it.
Yeah. Okay,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Go to page 4, we'll do the treasurer's office.
Like a lot of our smaller offices, the majority of my budget is payroll.
Page 4, treasurers, county treasurer.
And the payroll part, we discussed earlier and yesterday. I increased office supplies a little bit. Postage has gone up. The PVA office cleaned out a lot of documents, and the banker's boxes that I have to use to store our older records in are pretty expensive, and so I'm gonna recycle a lot of his. So basically, the increase is anticipating another postage increase at some point, and then just due to the increase of just office supplies. I really like flags, and I've got a lot of flags and highlighters. We're very organized. All that stuff helps. It does have a $300 allowance for $100 of each of us in my office for uniforms, for shirts. Our bonds have remained the same for years. Travel expense is the same. It's been down the last couple of years because we've been lucky enough that this past year, my treasurer's conference was in the Paducah, and this year it was. And then the year before, our occupational tax conference was at the dam. So we've had some local ones that have kept that down. I have $2,000 in equipment budget in there. That is for mainly miscellaneous or something. My adding machine really only works if you have the cover off of it, but and then I think we would like to get our own scanner for our office, for the desktop scanner for the Laserfish program. If we get further into it and decide we don't, I'm not gonna spend that money just at will. The only other thing is our software maintenance. I increased that because I had to increase it this year due to our occupational tax software bumping. They've continued to bump up their maintenance fee. I sent them an email and asked, they've yet to respond to me regarding the email. Basically, they've changed the format of how they bill for maintenance. And because they can touch our data, they see how much we bring in occupational tax, and so they charge a fee off of that, which in my email I expressed I didn't care for that. That our prosperity and hard work should not benefit them, but it's one of those things, just because maybe you have to repair something small on your car, you just don't go out and buy a new car. There's not a lot of occupational tax software out there. It's sufficient, it does the job. I don't love it, but it's what we have and it works. So even though I'm unhappy about it, I'm gonna pay it anyway.
You may have talked about this, I was just, on the health insurance, jump in health insurance.
Let me look at my payroll side.
That's a big jump.
I just wondered. I may have missed it when we were doing payroll.
And I may have an error in there.
So it was roughly 5%, and that is a big jump to, about a 20% jump there, looks like. Quick math, compared to the other.
It appears to be right.
If that's right, then the other number was wrong.
Yeah, if that's right, then mine, then this is part of that rounding thing which this isn't rounding, that's too much in rounding, because I've only got a free balance of $1,391 in currently. So I have to fund that some more. So I don't know whether it was,
What do you think, you might have been shorted this year?
yeah, I think I shorted it this year, somehow, somewhere.
Where did we get monies this year that do it then if we shorted it this year and that line item without line item transfers?
I haven't finished it yet.
Oh, so
It's-
you're gonna
it's still
find
out
out you're
there.
short and have to, so
yeah.
we will be seeing a line item transfer for that. Roughly $6,800 somewhere.
Yeah, I can tell you. Yeah, it is 1,200. It's 1,200. This should have, it'll be 4 more. Be 3,400.
It looks like with these figures though, what's budgeted and where we are as of 4/18, that we're skating along pretty close to, it doesn't look like there's gonna be any appropriation change.
For
according to
next
these fig-
year or this year?
For this year, we
Right, yeah, I'm gonna
budgeted
need-
25.4, and right now through 4/18/17, we stand at 22,809,
I'm gonna need 3,500 to cover that.
okay? Oh, in addition to what you have there?
In this year's budget,
Mm-hmm.
not next
I
year's.
guess you mean above the 25.4 that you.
Yeah,
budgeted.
above the, yeah, because you're at 22,809 right now. With 2 months, well, not, yeah.
Less than 2 months.
Yeah, with a month and a half ago, well.
Do y'all have any other questions?
You got another one that we can, the judicial building?
Well, we can just
Dennis,
scoot on down to
you
that
got the
court system. That's the law library, and we talked about that yesterday. The only other thing in there is those guardianship expenses. We're at 13 right now in our budget, so I just kept that the same. It seems to be something that,
That's the one that's a moving target all the time.
That's the one that Lisa said
Yes.
that they were paying, us another organization was paying, now they're not contributing.
yeah,
and-
I don't know that they were paying, but it was that Four Rivers
Right,
we didn't have to pay as many components
they
of
were
it.
providing those services, now they're not, they were funding that, and now they're no longer gonna fund it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not as bad as it sounded at first when she presented that, because I assumed those numbers would be a lot bigger, but that's pretty, stayed in line pretty good then.
We can move on, if y'all don't have any more questions there.
Election expenses. Expenses.
Yeah, we can move on down to election. That is our election officer, that's Claudia Phelps, her payroll. It also includes in election officers, that is your poll workers. Election commissioners, those are your party chairs that are on the election board.
And obviously, these decreases of $21,000 change, and on the next page, the ballots and instructions, that's because
Right.
it's not an election year.
Yep, that's due to only predicting the May 2018 election.
Okay.
Well, if we don't have any more questions on that, we got Dennis here. Page 11.
It's okay if I write on this?
As long as they're small numbers.
Oh, yeah, they'll all be small numbers, sure. I guess in looking at this, I'm trying to see if there's, as far as the numbers that I have and the numbers that. Okay, the numbers here are, on this, I think there was one minor change in what we had, what had originally, that I had originally had, Emily. As far as, well, let's see. I don't know that that's the case either. Let's see. No, it's just on uniforms, and that's fine. We're okay. I mean, what's up there is fine. I guess I had two questions about what we hadn't really, well, I say two, there are probably a couple others. Is it okay if I just start at the bottom?
Sure.
The Aurora Tourist Park supplies. And I guess what my question is, what are we, I guess and I'm gonna ask you all this, what is expected of us in terms of the park as far as what we do out at Aurora?
Well, that money was given to us a few years back from the dissolving of the Jackson Aurora Action Group. So
Okay.
they have expended all those funds now, so you won't have any expectations with that.
Except for the fact that they have expectations.
Yes, and their expectations will come through this grant process that we're gonna.
Oh, okay. So basically, I mean, what we've done some signage for them. We go out there and we have sprayed, and,
Minimal things like that.
right, and then we've done quite a bit as far as that goes, like some, putting pre-emergent on that parking lot, to try to keep the grass from growing up so we don't have to mow as much. But as far as that goes, like I said, we've done some signs for them, and they're still looking for some signs, but as far as the park budget goes, we're not expected to, I mean, if we are expected, that's fine, and
I don't know that I can answer that.
You talking about as far as the
us spending
maintenance of
money.
the park,
Right, yes.
parking
yes.
garage, or the parking lot?
Well, like, for example, they have one of these, I want to call it a road sign. And so they called me about getting a sign to put on the top of it, the Aurora Community Park or whatever. And I talked to the road department about it, and they said, what they're asking for is a bit more than what we can do, and basically, I told them they needed to talk to the road department. But I guess what my question is, I just need to know, are we expected to pay for those things out of the park budget?
I would think signage, no.
Okay. Then I can just tell them, hey, that's, we don't have the funds for that.
Right.
Okay.
That'd be something they need to either come to us about or.
Okay. So basically, I can refer the, what do they call themselves?
Whack
Whack
pack.
pack. I can refer them to fiscal court then. Okay. I mean, and obviously, we'll do the things that you want us to do and that we need to do. And that's what we do. We go out and occasionally check it and do some minor maintenance.
Certainly, it's our, I guess, location. I mean, it's a county asset.
Right,
We have done some work. I know Special Projects have done some work to the building and the
Right.
little shed there. And the
sure.
Pavilion, I guess.
Right, and I know we put a new sign up for them, and that I think it was billed to the parks, and I think we expensed it through the park. But we had the road department put the sign
We just have to
up.
figure out what we want to do. They have the bow fishing tournaments. They
Right,
go out
right.
of there and they have I know they have several events. Well, they gave us a list of their events. The car shows and those things that bring folks up to Aurora.
They're very active, no question about it, and obviously, we try to help them where we can. I was just curious in terms of the budget.
As far as the process for
Right,
those
yes,
requests,
yes,
yeah.
Sure, okay, then, and I'm gonna work back up, and there were just a couple of things that caught my eye. The day use parks, maintenance and supplies, and I'm thinking that we've created Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've created a new line item for mowing and improvements.
Yes.
And so I'm assuming that takes a good portion of what was in the day use parks maintenance and supplies out.
Yeah, I mean, combined, you're at 42,000 with those, but this year we've spent close to 60 already, so.
But there was some, yeah, and probably a big part of that, if I'm not mistaken, the 29, wasn't a lot of that dock that was put in? Or am I way off on that?
Yeah,
When all the riprap was part of it, but wasn't there,
the TVA dock.
TVA dock is what I'm talking about, wasn't that part of it? And that was $19,000,
Let me see.
if I'm not mistaken. I may be totally wrong.
That's just mowing, that's mainly mowing and porta johns,
Oh, okay.
right there, but there's another,
Okay.
it may be under
Well, the main thing on that is that, honestly, that we get the mowing and the porta johns, because we know what those amounts are. And then the other would
It's
be
right there.
for,
Yeah. It's there, yes.
okay, it is that, okay.
We got paid back from TVA, but
Right.
it's still expending from that.
Right, exactly. So realistically, when we combine those two amounts, we're not really, there's not really a cut
Right.
there in terms of what we're managing. Okay.
So
that's right.
that's the explanation for the decrease of the 25,000.
Right, yes, yeah, and that's fine. I just, wasn't sure.
That one-time day park.
Right, yes, okay.
Speaking of the Porter Johns, I just recently had a request where the new bridge is in Aurora. There's a lot of foot traffic going over the trail, or going over the walk path of the bridge. There is a bathroom facility on the LBL side, but not on our side. And one of the requests was asked of us if we could supply a Porter John to help facilitate that.
Okay.
So that's something that I think we need to think about adding to this. next
I had a
fiscal year.
request for more than a porta john.
Yeah, the same lady, that, talked to you, Bob, I think in the meantime, the Porter John, we can, but yeah, you're right, they were wanting an actual facility
Like a
and,
little, yeah, there on the corner somewhere where that starts, there by the parking area, maybe,
Right.
or somewhere like that. Of course, that may be park property, I'm not sure exactly, but, and they might be, actually, I mean, the park might be actually interested in, I don't know if you
They-
can get some dollars out of them to
Are you kidding?
they contacted, they contacted me
State of
too. and
Kentucky?
put a restroom.
The way they put it,
Yeah.
how did they put it? It's such a great idea, but
Yeah.
can you guys help? So, yeah,
Yes,
the-
you're getting a lot of traffic right there.
yeah.
And then, of course, on the other end, there is a restroom out there, but it's quite a ways
That's-
away from the actual bridge. A lot of people walk the bridge, but it's quite a ways on down to that facility. So, it'd be something that I think we could possibly might be a good addition up there if the park would help.
During the heavy season.
Yeah. I think, we'll see. I know there's just a lot of activity there right now.
Sure.
I think that may be because it's new to some extent, but I think there'll be a lot of, walkers, for, in the future.
So I'm guessing that basically, of course, we know what we're paying now for
The Porter Johns that
porta
we've
johns
got
that we
now.
have.
Yeah.
And I guess really what we need to do, and I'm assuming,
We can find out
just find out
what that additional
what-
cost would be to put one out
Right.
there, so.
It's not much, really.
50 a month.
Paying 700
700, and
A
I
month.
want to say 740 a month, something like that.
For all of them.
for
all
all
of
of them. Yeah,
Okay.
so we'll check into that. and-
Okay.
Through Rodney Lane.
And then,
Whenever you get time.
then on county parks equipment, that's I mean, obviously, we are going to need some more equipment. I do have one question. We got bids for mowers, and it's a little premature for me right now because we are trying them out. We have 3 different bids, and we've had one of the bidders who has already brought his mower out, and we've tested it. We're with another one today. We're hoping to be with the third one at the end of the week. And then what I was wanting to do is sit down with my guys on Monday and say, okay, pros, cons of each, which ones will work? Because the thing about the mowers is that with all the hills, there's some mowers that just won't work. I mean, they're good mowers and they'd be great on a level surface, but for the hills, they're not appropriate. And what I was hoping to do was get all that information together and then bring that to you all and say, okay, here's what we have. And this is what the cost is going to be. But one of the things that all of them have suggested is that the trading for mowers needs to take place during the early part of the mowing season. In other words, now. Of course, this is the budget for fiscal year 17-18. And what we're trying to do is get a setup where that we know every year this is what we're going to do. And so we can count on X number of dollars. I guess what my question is, do I need to wait to make a trade or whatever we do? Obviously, y'all are going to know what I'm going to recommend first, and it'll be your all's decision. But is there a way that we can facilitate that in the 16-17 budget? And I realize this is a 17-18 workshop, but it does have an effect because that's, it'll set the tone for where we go next year too, and in future years, where, where the money would be budgeted, but it wouldn't be paid out until the end of the budget. In other words, we'd be looking to make that change in March or April of 2018, which is where this budget would affect it. if we don't do that, then those numbers are certainly going to change, because we're gonna have, less value for our mowers, because they're gonna have another, 500 hours on each one. And part of what the people who we're dealing with, and the ones that we've, Crossroads, Lawn, Seafords, and CFI are the three bidders. And they all tell us, obviously, the fewer hours they have, they can replace them at less cost. But the mowing has to be done. We're gonna run up so many hours regardless. But again, that's a little premature, but I guess really we can talk about that next week, when I have some solid numbers as to what the proposals are.
If you're gonna get your solid numbers, then, you think about looking for dollars to just lease them right now for May, June.
Well, I will tell you this, one of the bids, now the others don't have this, but one of the bids, there is a proposal, as opposed to trading and buying outright. They proposed that, here's what it's gonna cost, but they also proposed a rental where we would rent them for, the way they had it set up was a 2-year period, and they have a set number of dollars that it would cost us for each mower each year.
Even if you're gonna buy it, if you could work out a way that you could rent or lease the thing for this year.
Right.
For June, I guess, almost June, or a month and a half, and then you'd have your dollars in there for next May or June, whenever
Sure.
you got ready to trade again. Would that work possibly, or?
I can find out. I can talk to all of them. What I'll do, let me get the,
Can you have it all?
I can have that all prepared by next Tuesday, yes.
Because we've got I think our last is June 19th.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll have all that ready by next Tuesday, so that won't be a problem. But anyway, as far as the numbers, on that for next year, that will give us a lot of latitude as far as things we need to do. That's just like, I didn't get any bids on the Rangers. Realistically, Polaris is about the only place around here that has what we need. And again, before we do anything, I'll talk to you all about that. But we can hold off until July on that too. Looking at what they have told me in terms of prices, that's not absolutely urgent. I mean, we're doing we've got a lot of we have 6 Rangers. 4 of them are pretty high mileage. 2 of them are just, I guess, a year or so old. They're not real old. But that's not as urgent as the mowers. We can do the Rangers virtually anytime.
And just looking at this spreadsheet,
Yes.
in 15, 16, and that line item was $73,000 and change.
Yes.
And then last year, there was $4,500, almost $68,000 difference, and then this year there's 40. Are you just trying to get that more consistent, identify that number instead of going from 73 to 4,000 back to 40
Yes.
and anywhere in between? That's a why, and I certainly think you're looking in the right direction to
Right.
do that and justify your cost and estimate your cost instead of wait until all that goes to hell in a handbag at one time, then have to expend $70,000
Right.
and explain that.
And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get all this on a systematic,
Right.
just where that we know each year, so that we have that maintenance. We know we're gonna need to spend,
Right.
say $15,000 trading in Rangers, or $10,000 on mowers, whatever those numbers turn out to be.
I think
Yeah, that's what we're trying to
Looking
do.
at those past figures, I think that's a good idea. That's kind of hard at budget time to swallow the $73,000 when last year it was $4,500 it was budgeted.
Right.
And I think that's
And we didn't, for the most part, we didn't buy any equipment last year.
Right.
Before, when I first came, we did have some leftover money in the budget, probably in that 73,000, where we traded the tractor in, we bought the third mower, and then we got the Oh,
Overseer.
the overseer, yeah, so, I mean, we did some things there, but those were one-time expenditures too.
Right.
So this will allow us to be
Make
able
that
to
number more consistent,
make it consistent, yes, yes.
easier to budget time.
And then on line item 7180, right above that, county park construction, 40,000 in that. That's what we were talking about for future things. We're not really, we'd like to have some money set aside so that, we had talked, if you remember last year, we were talking about the building to cover,
Equipment.
to put
Equipment
some of our
maintenance,
equipment in.
right.
Where we are, and I sort of put that on hold because we didn't have enough money to do what really needed to be done. But by the same token, at this point, last year, I was more focused on things like the property acquisition. Now that we have the property, and I realize the property acquisition is something that we'll look at over time. But, what I don't want to start doing is saying, okay, we've got a place out there on the new property, that would be the perfect place to put a maintenance building, when reality is, we build it, and then a year later, oh, why did we do that? That's in the middle of a place where that's not where it should have been. Of course, that goes back to the other thing we've been talking about, having someone come in on the comprehensive plan. And I was wondering, because I didn't see anything budgeted, for that. And that's something that I really think that we really need to take a look at, because we're going to need an engineering firm to come in and help us, plan for the future. One of the things that we've run into is, and I know people have talked about, well, the walking trails are getting in disrepair. Well, yeah, they are to some extent. And that's something that down the road, we're going to need to look into. We'll be looking at grant opportunities. But one of our biggest problems is erosion. Down on the lower walking trail, down by Soccer Field 4, anytime we get a huge rain, we lose a little bit more every time. And a lot of it, you get a lot of wash close to, if not on, Soccer Field 4. And we had looked at, and I had started talking with the Division of Water about moving that ditch. I'm going to call it a ditch. Now, they call it something else. But bottom line is, and Roy came out and looked at it and said, yes, we can move this. But then you get into these issues about blue line streams and things like that. Well, I told y'all a year ago that I would not ever put y'all in a position where that the state's going to fine the county for doing something that it shouldn't have done, like with messing with blue line streams.
Might be a snail darter in there.
You never know. You don't, I mean, the reality is, we don't know what may be there, but that's something where, and I had started looking into permit process and had talked to somebody at the Division of Water, and they had directed me and everything. But then reality is, and Andy had taken some pictures, and we sent them to, with the drone, and we had sent them to Frankfurt. But if we have an engineering firm come in to help us with a comprehensive plan, they could also address those type issues and give us some true expertise on those type things. That's the only thing that I'm seeing in our budget, that there's nothing to address that. And that is something that, and I know we've just done an advertisement for that, but I didn't know how that might be handled in the budget, or if that's something that's even feasible.
We haven't got a cost, have we?
No, well, we have two estimates. I mean, but, like I said, Brad, we just.
The RFQ out.
Yeah, the request for qualifications.
We'll know exactly what the dollar figure is.
Right.
Whenever that.
But we have had two proposals with amounts. One of them was 19,000, the other one was 25,000. And, realistically, that's one of those things we would probably want to talk to each group that has made the proposal, because are we comparing apples to oranges, or, you know, and that's, obviously, we want, if we do something like that, we want to get the most bang for our buck. And whoever does it, I want somebody that has the expertise to look at what we have and what we have acquired, you know, but taking into account our existing facilities, but also, if nothing else, addressing the water issues that we have had and will continue to have, because we're always going to have that. But that's really the only other thing that I would raise. But as far as everything else in the budget, I mean, it addresses pretty much all of our needs, I think. And I think it's a budget we certainly, that we can deal with, because some of the other areas that we've increased, what I'm trying to do is put an annual maintenance program together for overseeding, you know, because grass seed is not cheap. But if you look at soccer field 3 and baseball field 1, we overseeded those last fall. We didn't feel like we had enough money to do the rest of them, but we did those two. And there's a world of difference in the grass on those two as opposed to the other fields. Then we also have the Bermuda grass fields. Now, I didn't have anything to do with planting of Bermuda grass. We have to live with it. It's pretty when it's in the middle of the summer, but in the springtime when it's dormant, it is what it is. But we're looking at some options there, maybe overseeding with ryegrass and things like that during the springtime. But I do think that this budget will help us in those areas, because we'll have enough money, I think, to at least do some of them, and I'm comfortable with these numbers.
Would you, just back up there again. You were on construction before you got off that subject,
yeah.
on park construction.
Right.
And I noticed the little box, is it pointing where it says Emily Martin, 2 Rangers, 1 red cab truck, and 2 mowers under construction, park construction? How does that tie in?
No,
Doc, I
it's
thought that
on-
was the one below it.
It's
That's
on
the
the
equipment.
Okay, it's down there.
I was
Okay.
up on there, but the little red, babe, I don't know if you can see it, there's a little red block in the corner, that's where it's,
Okay, I can now. The black arrow was on it a while ago. Yeah, okay, I got it. That
I was wondering, when I first looked at it, I was wondering the same thing, but
that
no,
was
that's what
that was
I,
confusing
those are all
me.
for me, he's buying
Right.
these things
Okay.
for me.
Okay, and you skipped, asked to start at the bottom. What about special projects Christmas?
well, I mean, we won't spend that much money, probably. In fact, we haven't budgeted anything for that right now. I mean, we haven't spent anything. I don't think we'll
If you won't spend that much money, that's my question. Why is it in there if you won't spend that much money?
Well, I think in years past we have, and then it was cut last year, and I think that's what that was for.
Oh, yeah, it was cut, looks like not
Actually,
quite in half.
it was cut a whole lot more than that. It was cut last year, because we had to have money put in there because we had a misunderstanding.
Bought some lights.
What's
Right.
that?
We
We
bought some
bought some
lights
lights
we didn't know we'd
that we
bought.
didn't know we had bought.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what happened there was, those lights, the deal was made for those, at least, of course, it was before I was here, but what happened, they saw there was money in the budget for those lights.
Right.
In the 2015,
They
16
use it or
budget. The only
lose it
problem was it
philosophy.
didn't get billed until
Right.
this budget, and that's what happened there.
But you don't have any plans for that $15,000 now?
We'll probably buy some more lights, but we won't buy
Okay.
$15,000 worth, I don't think.
Okay, why don't we trim that number then? I mean, why are you gonna budget if, we just heard the superintendent say that's, it was 8,500 enough, we cut 7,000 off of that?
We can live with that.
Use it somewhere else.
yeah, I mean,
I'm just making
yeah,
that
that's-
comment on
sure,
your
sure. I mean,
suggestion that we're
yeah, we
not
could, I
going
mean,
to, and we
that's
bought
certainly
last
something
year.
that we could use elsewhere, no question.
It's been 10 would be an average that's been for the
Cut
past.
$5,000 off then, if that's,
Yeah, I mean, I'd be okay with that. I mean, certainly, we'd love to have it someplace else. You know,
we didn't make that offer, Dennis. We
well,
just-
well, you said it could be used somewhere else. I thought that's what you said. I mean, you know,
I just didn't
We
know.
thought it looked good back in the general fund instead of in the,
well, I'm not selfish.
So that's okay with you
But
to do that?
I'm okay with that, yeah.
Cut
I'm
that
o-
down to 10. What about, we were talking earlier before you got here about uniforms, and I'm a little confused on what I heard there. $300 labor, $100 support. Could we explain what that means? I know the judge said that's $300 period. I'm confused by the way it's stated here. $300 labor, $100 support.
What are you confused about?
Well, I mean, I said what the road department was is traditionally $200 and then
Because you all
$100 for
wouldn't have the
boots, and I
same.
understand you
Oh.
can combine
This
it
is not
and
gonna
they
have the
buy a
same
$300 pair of boots.
Okay,
Your
okay,
employees.
okay.
Are you aware of the fact that or what I was told this morning, that in this year's budget, your employees have, correct me if I'm wrong, what I was told this morning, that your employees have a $300 uniform allowance this year to
Yes.
spend by,
Yes,
okay, that they can spend it on anything they
Yes.
want to? Are
Yes.
they aware of that?
yes, I think so.
Not
Well,
anything they want to.
Well, yeah.
Yes, let's be clear, that's.
yeah,
Right,
I have told
Clothes or
them, I have told
Right.
them that, they need to do that before the end of the year.
They can buy, Tracy can buy a $200 pair of designer jeans, and B-Dub can buy 8 pair at Walmart.
Something like that.
Right.
Right, they have
but
$300
they've got up to
apiece.
$200
I-
to $300, okay.
Or,
Not designer jeans.
right.
Well, not,
We'd have-
no, but
well-
that's, if they can buy what they want to, they've got $300, then,
It's what's been authorized,
Right.
Right,
Right.
not what they
Right.
want to.
Right, right. And we have talked about them getting some things. Now, we have ordered T-shirts.
right. But is that,
That's just for the summer.
that's not included in this allowance? My understanding was they had to spend at their discretion, or is that not accurate? Does that T-shirt come out of that $300?
Yes.
It does? Okay, so it's not $300 to spend at their discretion.
Let's be clear, they get $300 for items that are approved. I don't know what part you don't understand of that. We've been discussing this for some time.
Here we go again.
So the dollars,
We just need to make it
as
clear to
far as
them
the
because
budget
they don't-
dollars,
they
the
don't
dollars are there.
understand.
Okay,
I can assure you, they don't
Okay,
understand.
okay.
So we take,
You've spoken to them?
I've spoken to them briefly. I will make sure they understand what they
okay,
have,
so,
okay?
Okay.
so that I can understand, $300, those T-shirts come out of there, so that leaves them, how much? Did they go out, how do they know to go out and spend it before June? you
They'll
know,
come ask me.
What we're providing?
We're gonna sit down and go through it with them.
Okay.
And I'm gonna tell them what they can do. Some of them have already spent money.
For boots,
Boots, yeah.
period.
Yeah, some of them already have.
Right.
And then we're gonna get with each
Understand.
one of them and say, here's what you have,
You're
and,
gonna subtract the T-shirts
That- that-
systematically.
Well-
And that's where you get into the asset management of it, so that you
Right.
can keep up
Right.
with
yeah,
what's been spent and what's been purchased.
We're-
Now,
we're-
as far as the communication that you were talking about, that's on the department head to make sure that the employees know.
Right.
and I'll take care of that. To the extent they don't know, I will take care of it.
Okay, well, they don't, they just knew
Okay,
that they didn't
they'll-
get last year,
well,
just trying
Yeah,
to.
and there, we have had a little bit of confusion,
Well,
but
if-
we're getting it worked out.
My concern now is that you got an employee that's not going to the department head. Are you aware that your employees are confused?
Yeah, a little bit. But I've told them we'll take care of it. And so I'm gonna go tell them what to do, and we're gonna get it taken care of. And I will handle that.
It needs to be handled. The
take care of
$100 support is for Dennis and the secretary.
Oh, okay. That's the question I
Is that
have, yeah.
cleared up?
I got that, yeah.
That's what I was wondering, what the $100 was.
Just didn't know. Yeah, okay.
Anything else?
Judge, I don't have anything. I mean, if they have questions for me about something,
Sure. Any questions?
oh, I do want to, Judge, I wanted to ask one question. Can I make a report at the next fiscal court meeting about what we're doing on, the park partnerships? Because maybe to get a little more publicity?
Sure. You've talked to several of the,
I've talked to several and still talking. But I don't want to leave any stones unturned.
sure. I think it's a good idea.
And Dennis, are banners included in that?
Banners are just a small part.
Okay, there's some people that have already obligated dollars for
Yes, and
that
we're-
in
we're-
meetings and so forth.
Yes, we're getting
And
ready.
I didn't know if the price structure was the same. We kind of talked about where we stood there and so forth, but,
We have sold several, and we're in the process
Okay,
of getting those ordered.
okay,
But we haven't, we're just barely, honestly, we're just getting started on that. But what I'm talking about is park partnerships, which is a,
well, yes, I know.
It's-
I
it's similar
understand what
but
you're talking
different.
about. Right, I understand what you're talking about, just a revenue source, right? I was under the impression that all of it had been kind of put on hold until we got, a little firmer idea of what those figures
well, now
would
the
be.
banners, we're still,
Okay,
we're
that's a
moving on with
separate
the
part.
banners.
Okay, that's, okay, yeah. Good deal.
Any other questions? All right. Appreciate it.
Okay. Oh. Yeah, that's a wish list. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Dennis.
You want to go through some of these other items?
Yeah, we can do that.
Let's see. I think the county coroner is pretty much on page 2.
Yeah, county coroner, most of these increases,
Page are we
Are
on?
2.
2. Bottom of page 2, top of page 3. The majority of these are payroll associated.
Travel and training, it's probably the biggest change there. What,
Yeah, I think that's due to them just having to go further or stay longer for autopsies or having to send more. I know that's the only time that comes into
I
play.
mean, you said that you don't know. Looks like we would know. Did they not justify when they were bumping that number? They requested a bump in that number?
No,
No.
They didn't, okay.
No.
where'd we get the number?
And some numbers like that may have come from like 2 prior years ago when I'm making this spreadsheet. So,
I mean, why did we, if they didn't request the number and we're not sure whether they have to go for autopsies farther or so forth, then why did that number increase? That was my question. What's the justification for? $5,000 last year, and they haven't spent half of that yet. It goes 8.5, and without the coroner's office requesting that. Like there's about $5,000 that could come out of that line item. If the pattern holds true over $3,500 in 15, 16. Doesn't look like we're even gonna get within $1,000 of that this year. So thus the question, without their requesting the additional funds in there or justification, it looks like there's, we can knock $5,000 off of that.
I'm looking at prior years. Those amounts came from fiscal year 15-16. All of those amounts. Now, how I got them copied over there,
We'll contact Mitchell Lee and
Yeah.
have him.
yeah,
come up here.
those numbers were
That way you
from
can
the
ask him.
15-16. So when I'm pushing, this year's budget spreadsheet and contains a whole lot more information than they have in the past. It's got your it's got your prior year's actual expenditures, your, this year's current budget, not necessarily original budget, but current budget with the amendments. Then it's got your actual spending through March 18th.
All right,
So-
we've got all that information.
Right,
That's-
so in getting to that point, originally, this column, unless we changed it with the department head, was the original budget line for 15-16. So yes, we can get with Mitchell and double check that what he currently has is fine and take these numbers back down because these numbers are not at Mitchell's request. This is what we had put in there a few fiscal years, prior fiscal year, not even this fiscal year, but the prior fiscal year.
Well, all I'm going on is information that I have in front of me here, and that's the only, have no communication with your office, but 15, 16, 16, 17, and 17, 18, and obviously that's, the pattern there is that we're gonna spend less than we did in 15, 16, and
Yeah, it's
so
not
that's-
really
that
a
was my
recommendation.
question
This
about
is just the
35.
numbers that were in the field.
Okay.
And because we haven't talked to Mitchell personally, I haven't changed those.
Well, we have changed them, but they've gone up $3,500 is my point.
When I began this spreadsheet, this column, this spreadsheet was from fiscal year 15-16. That's where those numbers came from.
The actual spent, not, obviously not the actual spent. the
No, this was
budgeted.
their original budget
Oh,
amount.
budget, okay, I don't have those figures, I've just got the actual spent in front of me, okay? I would think that'd be prudent to, if he hasn't requested that, then with that pattern that, we can
Yes.
save
Yes.
$5,000 there, or identify the savings of $5,000.
Any other questions on the coroner?
Do you want me to go ahead and change some of these now, or would
I'd
you?
reach out to Mitchell Mitch will come up here.
Yeah,
Okay.
ask him to,
That way he can explain it to them.
Okay. Okay, we can go to commissioners and fiscal
Fiscal
court
court.
responsibility.
Page 3.
Salary and payroll, train and fringe. Advertising, I bumped advertising to 17.
It's a big jump in our health insurance too, is that?
that was what they said yesterday, that's where Bob is included in there. On that said, is that correct? Emily?
Yes.
TLG?
The
Suggestion?
prior years were just you and Johnny. The software and development, that is 62.4. That is maintenance fees. And fuel maintenance system, correct?
Another one that $99,000, nearly $100,000, that's what we talked about last year, that we just spent about half of that. Okay. And the year before, it was $4,200. Okay. So that was just kind of a one-time
Yes.
deal there for technology, okay?
Yeah, and there's, of that 62.4, there is Laserfish. Their maintenance fee is 6,700 and Time Clock Plus is 5,700.
So $12,000 a year, is that? Okay, on top of basically, so that takes that 45 to basically that, okay. Good deal.
Tax bill prep went up a little bit. That fluctuates due to the number of tax bills that are written. Uniforms has been distributed out into the departments. This is where I'll move that county in phone and internet. I'll move that to GIS. The fleet leasing, we were looking at 1 vehicle for maintenance crew, 2 vehicles for the animal shelter.
Where was that now?
It's in fleet leasing, 502-53020.
Let's say again, what did you say?
01-5025.
Yeah, I got the,
Oh.
I'm at the spot, I just didn't hear what you said about it.
It's 2 for the animal shelter, 1 for the maintenance crew.
I was glad to see the Oak Level line extension in the budget. And the people at, my constituents at Oak Level are glad to see it. They was afraid the water tower was gonna rot down before they ever got water in it.
Well, it's been over a year, and the pump's not even hooked up to it. The 2 corridors that have been identified with pressure issues haven't been looked into. And we got a water tower that we bought and paid for that we don't have water to.
That line from the pump station to the water tower, that's the line that's, we're gonna spend this money on?
That was my intent this whole past year, was to get that Oak Level project.
Me too. Great.
Well, identify those two vehicles again, two for the animal and what?
One for maintenance.
One for maintenance, that's special projects? Special
It's
projects people?
maintenance. We've changed their title to maintenance department.
I wasn't aware of that change, that's why I was asking.
Any other questions?
The Chestnut Creek project is right in there. Maggie and Casey are still working on, with us to get that put together. We did get it. I was afraid initially that we were gonna have to have some funds in it, but we have worked it to where most of it is in kind. It's not all with us. Some of it's with the sanitation district and some of it's with the health department, but I do think we should be able to get by without having to spend this. But if not, we didn't want the grant to be denied because of a lack of funding. So we wanted it to look at, to present to that grant committee that we were willing to help out and with that project if need be.
Those are the type of grants that get moved to the top. That's a good deal.
Any other questions? We'll drop down the Board of Supervisors.
That's, yeah. Yeah, and PVA, just a little bit up. That's your statutory contribution, $75,700 that we
Where
have.
are we?
PVA,
Oh, okay.
that's your county employee and plus the $75,700 that's a statutory contribution that we have to do. Board of Supervisors, that is the board that hears the appeals from Tony's office. If the landowner and the PVA can't come to an agreement, it goes to that Board of Appeals for review.
You know who that board is off the top of your head?
The last appointment was Monty Collins,
I
that I
believe it's
appointed last year.
Brent Evans.
There's an attorney, I think.
Kip Mathis was on there, but I think he's
Down.
the one that comes off this year, and I serve as secretary.
Where would you find that board? The makeup of that board?
They meet,
PVA office, there's a,
Tony would have the makeup of the board.
I think it's July.
there's a certain period of time where they're available for appeals.
The makeup of that board, I believe, is by statute. I believe it's,
I'm just wondering
believe
who
it's
the
county.
players were right now.
well, one person will be, every year someone is replaced or reappointed.
So it's, you don't know if it's a five-person board. Tony will know
No,
that answer.
it's a
three.
three-person
Oh,
board.
three, okay.
It's always a three-person board. I believe it's a Benton appointment, a Calvert appointment, and a county appointment.
Tony will know that.
Yeah, I think it's a statute. I think it's, the committee is, how it's determined and who appoints it is by statute.
Do we want to go to page 5, courthouse administrative?
Sure. This is courthouse here, our janitorial staff. Other contract services, that is 508-03990, that remains the same at 4,000. That line is for, if you have a retirement party, if there are some expenses related to that. when we license vehicles, little expenses that are to another entity like that. The uniforms in here, those are for Tex crew and janitorial here. I believe they have $100 apiece.
Who the janitorial is the $100?
I believe so. Let me think.
Tex crew?
Yes. Yes, because there's 6 in Tex crew, including tech, which would be 1,800, and 2 for our janitorial would be the 2,000.
That was in this year's budget, and
Yes.
it was in last year's budget, this present budget.
Janitorial was not.
I mean, the maintenance,
Yes, they are in this year and next year at
they're
$300.
in this year and next year's
Yes.
proposed. Okay.
Yes.
If adopted, okay, good deal. They're not aware of that either.
We've sat down with tech.
I'm just telling you. As
Well,
of-
again,
As of
I'm,
7 o'clock this morning, they are not aware of that.
well, that is not, that it hasn't been communicated to the department heads. And
That's factual.
if there are individuals that don't know, then they need to go to their department head. That's been instructed by the department heads. Communicate that
That's
to
where,
their people.
maybe where the communication is lacking, but it's unanimous. They are not aware of that.
What is it that they don't know?
That, nor do the parks employees that I asked before.
No, I'm asking you, what is it that they don't know?
They don't know that they have the uniform allowance. They thought they had is $100 for the boots. They weren't aware, neither department is aware.
Let's,
They will be, because
I can go back, where was it, where we had $13,300 that we had budgeted for this fiscal year?
No, just as long as they're aware
We
of that. I just want to make the men aware of that.
We discussed this last year and budgeted
I
for it.
understand that. I
And-
understand that,
And
but
we
they
set
don't
those
understand
dollar
that.
amounts for those employees. To sit here and today and say that they don't know,
They don't know.
Then-
I've talked to one of them yesterday. and
It
one
has
of
been
today, and
communicated.
They do not know.
I
They
can
do
tell
not
you that
know
it's been
unanimously.
communicated.
They do not know.
Let's move on.
What's so hard to understand about that? Communication. We need to communicate to our employees. There is a lack of communication of our employees. I just asked the questions so that I can form, they have told me of their concerns, and I'm trying to answer it for them.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly clear, and I can go back and tell them whether that's been communicated properly or
That's
improperly.
the
They will
department
know that.
head's responsibility to
I'm saying
communicate
that.
that to them.
There is a lack of communication then because they are not aware of that.
Well,
And they have a right to know because here it is, the end of the year, and June 30th approaching. I have no problem with any of that. That's why I'm trying to get it so I can relay that to them.
but
So
that's,
that
that's,
communication will be.
that's not
improved.
your responsibility.
I
That's
know,
the
but
department
it is
head's
my
responsibility.
Because I'm responsible for taxpayers' dollars in this budget, and it is my responsibility. I beg to differ with you there.
Your responsibility is not to go out and inform the employees that that's the department
If
heads.
it's in that budget and I have voted to approve this budget that this body is, they have a right to know that.
Sure, through their department
I
head.
don't care who tells them. If it's in this budget, it's
And that's-
public record. Joe Blow can get a copy of this and say, well, it's right in here if they understand what it is.
Approving
And
the
I
budget is
plan
totally
to
different
do
than
that, do
informing the
so.
employees. And that's where the problem's at. Let the department heads inform their employees.
They need to do that because that hasn't happened as of now.
Let's move on.
Remodeling,
That,
bottom,
Remodeling.
remodeling, that is, we're working towards removing the carpet out of the building. That replaces Tim's floor in the front of the clerk's office. That floor is probably one of the original floors in the building. It is tile, it's not carpet, but he has moved past records retentions law where he has to have paper copies of things. They've been scanning long enough that they've got digital copies. So he had all these filing cabinets around the perimeter of that office. And so the floor is rust stained and things from those sitting on there. So it's that this is to replace his flooring, paint in there, replace the flooring in GIS. This whole section is still
I
carpet.
mean, I just want,
And then my office
we've
is
got a
still
plan.
carpet. So if I'm gonna go last, so if 25,000 doesn't cut it, I'll wait till the next fiscal year.
So that's the clerk's office and GIS.
And possibly mine, depending on how much it costs.
Are our guys gonna do that like they did this? This is obviously, they've done an excellent job here and in the treasurer's office, or PVA's office. They do good work.
Other buildings, this is where maintenance department salaries are. Other buildings, maintenance and supplies. This is a big one. We've added to it because it just keeps not being enough. Let me go see if there's something, but it's awfully big. Let's see if we made a note. Okay, yes. What we did is, we have taken out of the jail, there was a line item in the jail fund that was maintenance of that not only the jail, but that complex. We've taken that out of the jail fund, put that into the general fund. That's why y'all also see the increase in utilities. All those utilities are now gonna go to the general fund. We wanna make sure that the building is maintained as they should be, and not necessarily, if it needs patched, a patch might be fine, but it needs to be, we don't want to have to put that into somebody else's hands that may not make the overall best decision based off of budget. They don't want their budget to look bad. We don't want our
Disagree with
building
that.
go down because
Right,
we don't want their
yeah.
budget to look bad.
Responsible for those
Yes,
assets.
yes. So that's why the large increase is there. We've moved that out of the jail budget.
It's not necessarily a large increase, it's just a transfer.
Exactly.
So
It's
basically-
a large
basically the
increase in this
same.
line item, but there are no line items like
Right.
that.
Right.
There are equipment line items and things for his repairs down there, but not related to the building. Judicial, is very similar. I have added, where is that? Okay, under 5087-175. It shows a net reduction, but if we go and look at the payroll breakdown like we looked at yesterday, this part right here, this is for someone in Jeff's office to liaison between the judicial facility and AOC. AOC is really cracking down on what they will and will not reimburse for, and that there's a procedure in place as to how you go about that. we don't we don't have that, we don't have anybody following those guidelines for us. So I feel like we're probably missing out on a lot of funds that we should be recouping just because we're not jumping through the hoops that they want us to. This duty was gonna go to someone in Jeff's office, and this increase, I posted it here to this so that that could be recouped as well. This is a $2 an hour bump for someone in his office. I believe it's gonna be Kenita Roy. That was the discussion during our budget talk. But that we knew she would be very, very good at that and very capable of making sure that everybody isn't just ordering things willy-nilly, and if it's over a certain threshold and they have to get certain permissions, that we knew she would be good at that and
They have
help
to
us recoup some of those costs.
They have to follow the AOC protocol, and we cannot recoup any funds unless we follow that protocol, and that hasn't been done.
Yeah. On the overall budget, you see a reduction because we went down, we had one of the cleaning ladies retire, so now we're down to 2.
Kenita would be very good at that
She would.
job. No doubt.
Anything else on the judicial courthouse?
Juvenile housing, did put the $2,500 in there. That's the only part that's in there. Building inspection is zeroed out because it's in the building part, the building fund now. Ambulance service, want to touch on that?
I think Brian,
Want to wait for Brian? Okay. Fire protection, both of those are statutory. If it's something that we have to do, I've been trying to put statutory on there.
we can do sanitation.
Okay. Sanitation, all of that is payroll minus their phone expense. Should we be billing them for that? Because I don't know if we are.
Billing them for what?
The phone expense. They've got their
Yeah.
cell phones, Lyndall's cell phone is on our account. Okay. We can do that. Cemetery maintenance, no change. Oh.
Me?
Pauper burials, we haven't had one of those in a while. We had a few years where we had 2 or 3, and now we've had a couple of years where we haven't had any. So that remained the same. The special service group grants,
We did have on the Papa barriers, burials, McCracken County had one last year. It was a Marsh County resident, so we worked with them in that cost. But
good. The special service groups, that's kind of everything that we had in other places has been put in there. I've got a bigger breakdown of how I came to that number that would probably be best to bring up when we do the nonprofits that day or whatever. If we have time, after we get through the majority of this, we might could. That's
we got that scheduled for June 2nd. I think the whole day is scheduled for that.
okay. nuisance board is the officer pay, a little bit of office supplies, and a little bit of travel and mileage. The travel is mainly for that, there's board members that have to go to training, is that correct? Okay.
Do we at present have a full board, nuisance board?
We have two,
That's all we're supposed to have?
where it's a three-member board. I've
Okay,
got
so we're
one
good.
more appointment.
So the answer is no, okay.
We had someone leave.
Yeah.
Ken,
Yeah.
Ken left.
Back to Chicago, I think he said.
The judicial center bond payment, DLG questioned me about this because the bond payment is like $41,400.
Where are you, Emily?
I'm sorry,
11,
Page 11,
I
okay.
went down past
Okay,
parks.
yeah.
Which is towards the end of general fund. Judicial center bonds this in fiscal year 18, it will be about 41,400, I believe it is. But this, we only have a partial of it funded. They questioned me about this. I said we were gonna use the remainder of those public properties funds to clean that out and then pick up the rest out of general fund. So at first they wanted me to try to pull those in and we agreed that we would leave it as is and we'll pay for part of it out of public properties and the remainder out of here. Because I kind of debated with him about the purpose of the public properties money not supposed to be in the fiscal court's money. That's why they're separate, so. After a little thought, he agreed with me and we left it as is. Our commission debt service, that's what we got on, in the fee schedule for that for this year. Sanitation District number 2, loans and expenses. I have a note about what that's about.
which one?
That's the generator, the 55,000.
Yes.
And the expansion project, is that debt service?
Yes.
I bumped up state auditors because I think we're gonna get hit with 2 audit bills in 1 fiscal year. Since they have yet to get our audit from last fiscal year complete.
Or back to page 11, the $55 couldn't hear you. That's for a generator?
Correct.
Is that another fiscal court loan to the sanitation district?
That adds to it, yes. That was outside the action plan.
Insurance, we've gotten our quotes from Keiko. It was up a little bit, but that increase is spread between here and I charge ALC for their buildings portion. Memberships didn't change. Registration and conference fees, we did increase a little bit. As you know, Brad, Brenda, and I went to the Time Cost Plus Summit. That was probably the most informative training I've ever been to. It was extremely helpful. I'm not sure that in the future we need to go every year, but until we get as good as they are with it, I do think we need to continue to go for at least one more year. I'm also anticipating that NACO will be in Nashville in 2018. There's a lot of things with NACO that are pretty interesting, and if it's that close, we may want to check that out. So, their conference isn't usually until July, but the registration fees would be due prior to that. So that's the main portion for that increase. Reserves sit at 99,000. It will change just simply because we've made small little changes today. That $5,000 out of Christmas lights, little things like that. I'll have to change that. You'll see over here to the right, I'm not balanced anymore. There's a false, and I've got a difference of $3,900. So
in reserves, that's one of my other questions, with the budget and amendments to the budget, the reserves stand at 880,000. Is that accurate? Right now,
where? In fiscal year 17 or 18?
right now, what it is right now.
Today?
We're close. Yesterday, last week. Where did the $808,000 come from? It says 2016-17 budgeted with amendments.
Okay, so you're just asking about general fund.
Just reserves, period. I'll get that answered another time. I'm going to have it now, but.
Let me get I'm in the wrong fiscal year.
I can get that answer any other time, but you can move on.
It would be that same amount, because, on that last appropriation transfer, I can't remember if I pulled anything. I don't think I pulled anything out of reserves. I can show you.
So that is accurate right there, $808,000.
Yep,
Okay,
808, 901, 98.
right, okay. Basically, what's in reserve, that's what's in reserve right now, hard, fast dollars. And
And those are,
what?
I don't want people to be confused and think that there's $808,000 somewhere sitting, waiting for us to spend. That's not necessarily the case. That's
No,
the
it's in
difference.
reserve, those are hard, fast dollars in reserve. I understand what reserve is.
Okay,
And in 2017, 18, we are proposing to add $99,000 to the reserve.
no.
No, okay.
It
Budgeted.
It becomes 99,000.
Oh, so now,
It will not, it doesn't roll. It will never roll.
so we have,
So part of where that is gone is you've got $400,000 in an economic development plan. You've got $100,000 in Benton Oak Level line expansion. You've got $200,000 in Marsh County sanitation debt service. You've got,
but,
Shark,
I understand that. I saw that as we go through, but, so we're anticipating what we have in reserve right now are $99,000 are projected.
we are projecting going into fiscal year 18 that we would begin with $99,000 in reserves in general fund.
Question answered, good deal.
Any other questions?
Workers' comp went up a little bit. We've had some lost time claims, and they've increased our mod factor, that's our multiplier, so it's gone up slightly. Employee vacation payout. This is not a line for, we are doing vacation payouts for, there's an option, there's a one-time option for an employee to sell 80 hours of vacation or sick or any combination of that up to 80, not more than 80. That is not coming out of here. That's going to come out of wherever their regular payroll line item was. When we have shifted pay dates, that's going to make fiscal year 18 only a 23 pay period year. They'll get paid June 30th, then they won't get paid again until July 22nd. So then that's going to start number one. Then the one that they would have gotten on June 30th, they won't get to June 30th of 18. They would get it July 5th of 18. So it's a 23 pay period year. So because we're going to offer that option to sell, that's going to become your 24th pay period. So payroll looks as if payroll does this year. Looks like it's 24 because that is what I'm budgeting. It's what we're going to need to budget next year and the next year and the next year. Just due to the pay date changes this year, we would just have a 23. But because we're offering that sellout, that makes us whole there. What this vacation payout is for is, say, I have no knowledge that somebody is going to retire and that they have X number of vacation days that I have to pay out, and that's not been budgeted into their payroll line item. That's where this comes into play. Because if I don't have that, it throws off their whole everything. Out of their payroll. Their payroll is going to be, if it's somebody that has substantial time, you know, those payments can sometimes be up to $10,000 depending on what they do and how much time they have.
This drug-free workplace expenses, is that where they drug test the employees randomly?
Mm-hmm.
You know who does that?
Insight.
Is that something could be bid on?
We,
It is bid on. I had a guy in Murray that does Callaway County. He's wanting to bid on it. He thought it could save us some money.
Doesn't
Yeah.
Kyle Legner do part of it?
he does.
Pre-employment DOT physicals, drug screens.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just two different types of screens. We also, because we have that drug-free workplace program, we get a portion back, a percentage back on our workers' comp premium, I'm pretty sure it is. It's around $5,500. So it's the program isn't a wash, but that benefit, that giving us back makes it better for us. It's a benefit to us. Wellness program, it's gone up a little bit. We've changed the format of it, and it's more of a, for each task or thing that you do, you get a certain dollar amount. And so it will pay out a range between $50 at the lowest or $500 at the highest, depending on how many activities you've completed and that kind of thing. So anticipating some of those smaller payouts that we haven't done before, I've increased that a little bit.
How many of our employees participate in the wellness, full-blown wellness?
It's just under half.
It used to be a lot higher. However, we've geared the plan to where it's not just for fun and to give you a check, that you have to do things. And so that's why, as it's gone along, less are participating. But
So that's pretty good
We're not,
participation.
yeah, we're
for
not gonna pay them to do nothing.
Anything else, you're not gonna get half the people. So
Yeah.
that's pretty good
Yeah,
participation, higher than I thought it would be. Obviously, it serves a purpose, or it wouldn't be there.
Mm.
Improvement.
the only other thing I can
Yeah.
touch on
Go ahead.
would be to go down to occupational tax. I bumped refunds up by $5,000. We have one that is still in it's called Kira. It's a program that we agreed to give back for X number of years to one company.
Where are you now?
Occupational tax, it should be close to the back.
16.
What was the deal that's been worked out some time ago?
There is one company in in Calvert, that we still have a Kira agreement with, which means we give back a portion of their occupational tax dollars. They send them in normally, and then this company is not great.
On the chemical industries?
Yeah, it's one of the plants down in Calvert, is not great about getting those reimbursement letters to us. So I've got two quarters, and roughly their quarters are about $15,000 apiece, between 14 and 16, what we give back to them. So I've got another 30,000 on top of this 78,000 that we are needing to give back. Plus, we've just finished April 15th. There's going to be some returns due to individuals and other businesses. So I'm projecting that we need to increase that by about $5,000.
That was a deal that was worked out some time ago with cities and counties, and how many more years are left on that agreement? Can't be many.
Yeah, I want to say it expires
It's about run
in,
its course.
I want to say it expires in 18 or 19. I'd
Yeah,
have to
that's
look.
my recollection too. I think it's about, but there's no other, my understanding.
And that's the
my
last one.
That's the last one?
There was one other one,
Right, that's.
and they voluntarily bowed out of it because they got another finance arrangement with the state that excluded local dollars. So we benefited from that.
Well, that one was the one you're speaking of that got some other kind of deal. They were extended out even farther than
Right.
18 or
Yes,
19.
yes,
But the first entity
yes.
you're talking about was the first one, so that's about, so the other entity opted out, okay? I didn't
Now,
know that.
there will be, I'm assuming there could be in the future some of the things that Josh has come to us, and we have accepted that in the last couple of years. It is, like he said, though, it's a performance grant, so however many jobs were created that we said we would give that back. So that may come into play too, depending on when they get all that information in there. I'm very,
Those deals.
I'm not sure how all that's gonna play out. I'm not sure how they're gonna be able to disclose to us.
Been too many years ago, Gerdau, they received, I know, a state.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't need anything from us, or did they?
No, not the cities in North
I
County.
don't think so.
But they did from the state, and I didn't know how that was gonna work. But that one, they put a furnace in, and kind of a big deal, and then shut down, so.
Westlake and Arkema were the two main players in the other deal. And I assume that Arkema's the one that backed out, opted out, other way around, Westlake opted out.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think,
What?
I think that's all I can cover.
Okay. We got quite a bit done today. Let's see, on the agenda for tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but looks like the 30th. The continued department heads, will have that more lined out as far as who can show up and what time. Looks like May 30th at 8 a.m. will be our next